Chapter 33. A few days ago, Jing Yunjiao took a leave of absence. Now that she was back, she had a completely different image. The entire class was filled with excitement. Although Jing Yunjiao's grades were good, she was not popular in the class. In the past, no one was willing to be her deskmate. However, she was stubborn. In the end, she simply moved her desk to the back of the class, and no one was in her way. But today, when Jing Yunjiao entered the classroom, she strangely found that her desk was gone. "Jing Yunjiao, your seat is here." In the crowd, a boy suddenly shouted with a smile. Following the direction that the person was pointing at, Jing Yunjiao was stunned. That seat was the golden location in the class. If she remembered correctly, the deskmate was the class monitor. In front of her was the study committee member, and behind her were the students with good grades. It could be said that the entire class was gathered there. As for the deskmate, the class monitor, Jing Yunjiao furrowed her brows. Jiang Xia. His grades were in the top 5 of the class, and he was also a member of the school's basketball team. Even the school's most handsome guy list had him, but his ranking was not high. The reason why Jing Yunjiao remembered him so clearly was not because this person was outstanding, but because in her previous life, he was the one who pursued her crazily. Originally, he wanted to get rid of her and make her feel desperate and embarrassed. In the end, he did not expect her to go to prison first. When he realized that there was no need to, he told her the truth with a face full of ridicule. Even though this person pursued her relentlessly at that time, she had never been moved. She was just a little touched. But she did not expect that the person who moved her was just a liar who used her to get Xiao Hongye's heart. He almost turned the little sunshine in her life into nothing. Jing Yunjiao wanted to refuse, but when she thought of Jiang Xia's actions in her previous life, she walked over and sat down. "Jing Yunjiao, we misunderstood you in the past. I represent the entire class to apologize to you. Also, this seat is pretty good. In the future, if there's anything you don't understand in your studies, we can ask each other." Jiang Xia stood up and said in front of everyone, "Thank you, class monitor." Jing Yunjiao replied politely. Her face was not as excited as Jiang Xia had imagined. At this moment, Jiang Xia was somewhat dissatisfied. There were quite a lot of girls in this class who had a crush on him. Many of them wanted to sit next to him. Now that he had taken the initiative to let Jing Yunjiao sit next to him, how could she not have any reaction? But now that he was in front of his classmates, he couldn't show any bad attitude, so he just maintained a smile and sat down. "Jing Yunjiao, I heard that you don't live at home anymore. Did he have a conflict with his parents?" "Actually, as parents, we all love our children. It's just that the way we do it is different. You don't have to take it to heart. When you go back on Friday night, just apologize and everything will be fine." Jiang Xia sat down and started to mumble. Jing Yunjiao suddenly realized that Jiang Xia had always been such a hateful creature. It was just that she didn't realize it in her previous life. Opening the book, Jing Yunjiao didn't even raise his head, as if he hadn't heard anything. "Why aren't you saying anything? Are you feeling sad in your heart? Actually, you don't have to be like this. Isn't Xiao Hongye from the next class your sister? She looks quite obedient and sensible. You can explain to her and let her go home to help you with your work. This way, your father will definitely forgive you. If you really don't want to, I'm quite willing to help you. After class, I'll talk to Xiao Hongye and apologize." Chapter 34. Jiang Xia's kind face, coupled with his sunny appearance, indeed gave people the impression of a kind heart. If she was really anxious to reconcile with the Qiao family, she might even be touched by his kindness. However, the current Jiang Xia was not the scheming man from her previous life. He was underestimating her intentions. Apologize to Xiao Hongye? Unless her brain was damaged. "Class monitor, do you usually treat everyone like this?" Jing Yunjiao asked with a dull face. Jiang Xia froze and blushed. "That's not it. I saw that you were in a hurry. After all, we'll be deskmates in the future. Your problem is my problem. I'll help you." "Don't worry." As he spoke, he met Jing Yunjiao's pair of indifferent eyes. He suddenly realized that the girl he had always looked down on was indeed very good-looking. Her skin was very white, giving people a very clean feeling. It was just that her temperament seemed a little cold, and she wasn't as easy to get along with as Xiao Hongye. She had a kind of overly strong aura. Well, girls should be cute and obedient, cute and sensible. Jing Yunjiao was not angry, but laughed, so class monitor's eyesight is not good. I really don't know where you saw that I was anxious. Besides, we are deskmates, not husband and wife. It's not good to speak so ambiguously, right? They were both 15 or 16 years old. When Jiang Xia heard the word husband and wife, his face immediately turned red. He was also a little angry. We are all classmates. He tried to explain. Class monitor, if you like Xiao Hongye from the next class, you can just muster up the courage to chase after her. When the time comes, I won't tell the teacher that you are in a relationship, but please don't drag me down with you. Also, I don't like people being too close to me, so please don't cross the line and touch anything on my desk in the future. Jing Yunjiao was straightforward and direct. Her voice was not loud, but every word she said made Jiang Xia stunned. At this age, it was the time to care about face, especially for boys like Jiang Xia. After becoming the class monitor, he hoped that he could always shine with a different light in the eyes of his classmates. He even hoped that he could attract more girls' admiring gazes. But what did Jing Yunjiao say? She didn't like people dragging her down, and she didn't like people being too close to her. Close. Jiang Xia looked at his hand. He had only gone a little overboard. The only thing he had touched was the corner of the book. How can you not know what's good for you? Jiang Xia's voice was a lot louder than before. Although the class was noisy, the students were all whispering to each other. Jiang Xia's shout was heard clearly by almost everyone. Jiang Xia had good looks, good grades, and was the class monitor. Therefore, he was quite popular in the class. This was especially true for girls of his age. They always liked boys who were eye-catching. Seeing him so angry, many people thought that Jing Yunjiao had done something bad again. Everyone was stunned. The room was silent. Jiang Xia acted as if he didn't feel the gazes of others as he tried his best to calm himself down. With a face full of good intentions, he said, Jing Yunjiao, we're all classmates. Why are you making such clear distinctions? Besides, as the class monitor, I have the intention to help you. Why don't you think about it? You're just a student right now. Without the support of your parents, where would you get the money to squander? Your dad raised you for so many years without asking for anything in return. You can't make your relationship so stiff. Look at Xiao Hongye, and she has never caused any trouble. You should learn from her so that your father will dote on you. Chapter 35. The students originally didn't know what was going on, but after hearing Jiang Xia's words, they immediately understood what was going on. Jing Yunjiao closed her book and turned to look at Jiang Xia. Her eyes were cold. I can't tell that you're helping me. Moreover, not everyone is Xiao Hongye. Not everyone is as smooth and slick as Xiao Hongye. You make yourself sound so lofty. Those in the know will think that you're being kind, but those who don't will think that you're Xiao Weimin's son. Jing Yunjiao, how can you say that? The class monitor is such a nice person. The study committee member sitting in front of Jing Yunjiao also turned around. This study committee member's name is Yi Qing. He's not bad looking, and his grades are second in class. He and Jiang Xia are publicly known as a couple, but the two of them haven't broken through that layer of window paper yet. To you, the class monitor is a nice person, but what does that have to do with me? Jing Yunjiao replied without hesitation, you don't understand someone's past, yet you decide someone else's life. Do you really think that you're God? My relationship with the Qiao family is my business. I'm really curious, class monitor, are you so bored that you want me to apologize to the Qiao family? I'd like to ask you on what basis. She indeed wants the so-called good reputation, but she won't allow others to bully her. Something like reputation, she will have it one day. If she's still being bullied by others, then she doesn't want to force herself. Jing Yunjiao's imposing manner is also extremely scary when she's angry. I already said, it's the Qiao family that raised you. Moreover, if you don't go home, then you won't have any money. Jiang Xia also had a stomach full of anger, and said somewhat angrily. He's obviously doing it for Jing Yunzhao's sake. He's never seen someone who doesn't know what's good for her. No wonder no one liked her before, she deserves it. With him saying that, Jing Yunzhao's face revealed a trace of a cold smile. Everyone thinks that she owes the Qiao family, but does she really owe them? Not at all. Class monitor Jiang, you grew up soaking in a jar of honey, so naturally you don't know how I live. I don't mind telling you, before I started school, I already learned how to work. You guys go to school for your future, but I go to school for scholarships. My school fees didn't cost the Qiao family a single cent. Every single living expense is earned honestly. You're saying that the Qiao family raised me? But why do I feel like you're mocking the Qiao family? Jing Yunzhao's memories of the first 15 years of his life became clearer and clearer. When she was young, she didn't have the ability to earn money, so she tried her best to sign up for all kinds of competitions, especially those with prize money. When others participated in competitions, their parents would accompany them, but she was always alone. When she entered junior high school, she had to spend more money. She took advantage of the weekends to work part-time. However, no one wanted her because she was too young. She had to put in a lot of effort, and the money she earned was pitifully little. In the past, she thought that Yi Qin and Xiao Weimin wanted her to be successful. Now, she knew that they didn't want to waste a single grain of rice. Even if she owed them a favor, she had already repaid them in her previous life. Jiang Xia didn't expect Jing Yunzhao to say something like that and was momentarily stunned. Jing Yunzhao didn't spend the Qiao family's money to go to school? Even his living expenses were earned by himself? It can't be. I don't care if you have good intentions or bad intentions. From today onwards, I don't want anyone to act like class monitor Jiang, pretending to be kind and persuading me to return to the Qiao family. This is the first time, so I'll bear with it. If there's a second time, I'll let you know that there's a price to pay for being a lobbyist. Chapter 36. The class was silent. Hearing Jing Yunzhao's threatening roar, some of them frowned, some of them were shocked, and all of them had a variety of expressions. Behind Jing Yunzhao, there was the sound of a book being smashed. Well said. Jiang Xia, I think you have nothing better to do than to meddle in other people's business. Don't think that I didn't hear what you said just now. Who are you trying to kidnap with your morals? Jing Yunzhao being unwilling to go back has nothing to do with you. Luckily, you said those words to Jing Yunzhao. If it were me, I wouldn't even reason with you and would send you to class 2 with a slap. Do you believe me? A girl behind him stood up and said boldly. Jing Yunzhao was slightly surprised and turned around. Looking at the girl, she sighed in her heart. Xiao Haiqing. Even when she was in prison in her previous life, she had heard a lot about her glorious deed. Today, Xiao Haiqing was only the PE representative of Class 1. She had a carefree personality and was a tomboy, but she was very beautiful. She was completely different from Suchu. Xiao Haiqing's grades weren't the best, but they weren't bad either. She was actually very smart, but she spent most of her time on sports and didn't like studying. When she left the Qiao family in her previous life, she would occasionally hear about Xiao Haiqing's existence from Qiao Hongye. Xiao Haiqing didn't like pretentious girls. Although they weren't in the same class, she didn't know why she was at odds with Qiao Hongye. Qiao Hongye had suffered a few setbacks because of her. She understood Qiao Hongye. With her personality, she naturally wouldn't be willing to suffer losses. She must have secretly contacted the hoodlums outside and used similar methods to deal with Xiao Haiqing. However, Xiao Haiqing was a little weak. Not only did she run away, she also beat Qiao Hongye up in a fit of anger. From then on, Qiao Hongye wanted to keep the peace. She only scolded Xiao Haiqing once in a while at home, but she didn't dare to do anything to Xiao Haiqing. After she was sent to prison, she happened to read the newspaper a few days before she died. There was Xiao Haiqing's face on it, and it said that she was a black widow from a wealthy family. According to the report, Xiao Haiqing was not idle when she was studying at the university in Beijing. She especially seduced old men. Every time she married them, those men would die, and she would naturally inherit the property and become a new rich person. Although she didn't know Xiao Haiqing very well, she knew that she was a strong girl. The word seduction was definitely not something she would do. As for the reports, they could only believe half of it. She had a very good impression of Xiao Haiqing, whether it was in her previous life or now. Xiao Haiqing. Jing Yunzhao's eyes flashed with deep gratitude. He turned to look at Xiao Haiqing and said, "I've learned my lesson. If anyone dares to provoke me in the future, I'll do as you say. Little girl, you're quite smart. All right, I'll protect you in the future." The corner of Xiao Haiqing's mouth hooked up. She raised her hand and with a pa sound, she high-fived Jing Yunzhao. It could be considered that they had become friends. She was also surprised. She originally thought that Jing Yunzhao was born to be bullied, but it turned out that it wasn't the case. Under that cowardly appearance, there was actually a small universe that was about to explode. Jiang Xia's face was dark. If there was anyone in this class that he didn't want to offend, it would be Xiao Haiqing other than Teacher Jin. He wasn't afraid of a girl like Xiao Haiqing, but she was unreasonable. As long as Xiao Haiqing thought that something was right, she would never listen to other people's nonsense. If someone said too much, she would really throw a punch. Moreover, she was used to acting shamelessly. She would never admit that she had hit someone. Sometimes, in order to avoid being punished, she would even throw a punch at others when no one was around. She was very cunning. After hitting so many people, she still hadn't received any demerit points. Chapter 37. Looking at Xiao Haiqing's face, Jiang Xia immediately became listless. "I don't have any other intentions, I'm just doing it for her own good." Jiang Xia pursed his lips, with a face full of unwillingness, looking just like a sissy. This kind of sissy temperament made Xiao Haiqing look down on him even more. Glancing over at him, "I don't care who you're doing it for, just don't try to disgust me and Jing Yunzhao. Don't you like to pair up with Yi Qing and that girl from the next class? Then you guys can do whatever you want, stop trying to lecture others." Jing Yunzhao also couldn't help but admire her. In the entire class, probably only she can talk to others in such an arrogant manner, and not let them have the courage to retort. This girl is really becoming more and more to her liking. In the past life, she didn't have a single friend. But now that she has been reborn for a week, she already has Suchu and Xiao Haiqing, so it's worth it. All right. The teacher will be here soon, can you guys not talk so loudly and affect other people's studies? Yi Qing, who was sitting in front, became angry from embarrassment. Immediately putting on the airs of a study committee member, he immediately lowered his head and scolded them. Although it looks like he's in the right, but the other side wants to find a mouse hole to hide in. It can be seen just how nervous Yi Qing is. Jing Yunzhao also isn't an aggressive person. After all, the current situation isn't right, so she doesn't have the heart to mess around with Jiang Xia or Yi Qing. On the other hand, Xiao Haiqing, who was sitting next to her, directly ordered him to change seats with her. In just a short while, Jing Yunzhao had already changed 2 people sitting next to her. This speed is really incomparable. When Ms. Jin came in, she only glanced over, but not only did she not blame her, she was actually very satisfied. Jing Yunzhao's grades are good, so sitting behind her will only affect her performance. How can that be? If it wasn't for the fact that no one was willing to sit next to her before, then she really wanted Jing Yunzhao to sit right under her nose and watch. The first day of school after his rebirth passed by with ease after a small commotion. However, after school, Jing Yunzhao found a note in his book. It said, "I'm doing this for your own good. I hope you won't be angry." Even though there was no signature on the note, Jing Yunzhao could guess who wrote it from the tone of the note. He casually threw it into the trash can. She couldn't be bothered with some self-righteous people. The scenery in Huaning County was beautiful. Even in the county town, the air was fresh and pleasant. The business development was also good. After nightfall, the lights were bright and beautiful. Jing Yunzhao rejected Xiao Haiqing and Suchu's invitation and walked to the door of a big pharmacy alone. In front of him was the basket that looked a little dirty, but it was full of fresh Codonopsis pelosula. She was too short on money. If she wanted to live boldly, she had to have the ability to support herself. The pharmacy in front of him was the biggest in the county. It was also quite old. It was just nightfall, so the lights inside were very bright. He could clearly see the situation inside. Jing Yunjiao didn't walk in rashly. Instead, she waited outside for a long time. The people who walked past her were all here to buy medicine. She didn't see anyone who sold medicine like her. After more than half an hour, Jing Yunjiao saw a respectable old man appear in the pharmacy. Then, she walked in without hesitation. As soon as they entered, the people in the huge Chinese medicine room were all stunned. The old man looked at Jing Yunjiao and then looked at the basket she was carrying. He was very surprised. He frowned and said, "Little girl, you want to sell medicine?" Chapter 38. After all, this was the first time Jing Yunjiao had experienced this. She nodded in confusion. She always felt that these people were looking at her strangely. Sure enough, the old man laughed when he heard this. "Little girl, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. We don't accept medicinal herbs here. You can only go to some private medicinal herb shops." However, I don't think they would dare to accept too much. Jing Yunjiao's body stiffened. She was very puzzled. However, the old man continued, "This is a traditional Chinese medicine pharmacy. If you want to buy medicinal herbs, you'll only buy them unless they're very precious and rare. Otherwise, you'll only buy some traditional Chinese medicine drinks. Most of those traditional Chinese medicine drinks have medicinal herb factories that cooperate with them. Unless your medicine is better than theirs and cheaper than theirs." Jing Yunjiao immediately understood what he was trying to say. There were 3 types of medicinal herbs. The first type was fresh medicinal herbs that had not undergone any processing. The second type was processed medicinal herbs that could be used directly. As for the third type, it was a prepared medicine made with the second type as the raw material. For example, there were some packaged powders sold on the market. Jing Yunjiao was also a little annoyed. Although she had a lot of knowledge in her head, she did not put much of it into practice. That was why she had made a mistake. "Uncle, thank you for your advice. I know what to do now. However, Uncle, if I bring the processed medicinal herbs here, will you accept them?" Jing Yunjiao asked. Her somewhat cool voice sounded very pleasant. Coupled with her outstanding appearance, it was easy for people to have a good impression of her. As long as the quality is good enough, the shop will consider it. "By the way, little girl, if you are in a hurry to sell these things, I have a good place." The old man thought for a moment. Looking at Jing Yunjiao's obedient appearance, he could not help but add another sentence. Suddenly, Jing Yunjiao's eyes lit up. "There is a bad old man in this county who is a pharmaceutical maniac. As long as he sees good quality medicinal herbs, he will accept them no matter how many there are. However, the price may be much cheaper than other places. You can go and take a look. It's not far from here," the old man said and told Jing Yunjiao the address of the maniac. Jing Yunjiao was also a little hesitant. It was night now. The place the old man said was not far, but it was surrounded by small alleys. It was not a place with a lot of people. However, after thinking about it, Jing Yunjiao still decided to make a trip. She had the space, and she had also practiced a few moves. The possibility of an accident was still very small. There was no need to worry unnecessarily. Jing Yunjiao left a few codonapsis pelosula to express his gratitude and went straight to the place the old man had told him. There were more than a dozen alleys, and the night was not as brightly lit as the main roads. Occasionally, nightingales would stand in the surroundings and let out a few cries, making one's hair stand on end. If it was in her previous life, Jing Yunjiao would not have the courage to do so. But at this time, she found that her courage was much greater than before. She was not afraid of the unfamiliar surroundings. After 30 to 40 minutes, Jing Yunjiao found the place. There was a strange smell in the surroundings. There was a medicinal fragrance, but there were also other smells. For example, there was a burnt smell and a corrosive smell mixed together. It was very strange. This was a large courtyard. The black lacquer door seemed particularly heavy and quiet, giving a very gloomy feeling. Feeling some movement in the courtyard, Jing Yunjiao chose to knock on the door. More than 10 seconds later, with a creak, the door opened. In front of her was a face that did not look old. This person was in his 30s and looked a little listless. He looked her up and down. "What's the matter?" Chapter 39. The man's voice was a little hoarse. Coupled with his temperament and the surrounding environment, other people would probably be scared to the point of running away. Jing Yunjiao was a little curious and said politely, "I'm here to sell medicinal herbs." She pointed to the basket in front of her feet. The man glanced at it. "Come in." After saying that, he directly pulled Jing Yunjiao's basket in. His strength was not small. After entering the courtyard, Jing Yunjiao was immediately shocked. She saw rows of medicinal shelves, medicinal vats, and all kinds of things in front of her. However, it was obvious that many of them had been put away. The strange smell also came from the courtyard, but after getting closer, she did not find the smell so unacceptable. "Master is busy. I'll take care of these things. The quality of your Codonapsis ginseng is not bad. I'll give you 30 yuan per kilogram. If you're willing, I'll withdraw the money for you. If you're not willing, you can take these things and leave. Don't come back in the future." The man was very straightforward. His expressionless face was very expressionless. For fresh Codonapsis ginseng, this price was not outrageous. Jing Yunjiao was not greedy and nodded. The man moved quickly. Once he saw that Jing Yunjiao had agreed, he cleaned up the Codonapsis ginseng in a short while. He almost checked them one by one. His meticulousness was simply outrageous. If not for Jing Yunjiao's amazing patience, she probably would not have been able to stand others doing business like this. After all the Codonapsis ginseng had been checked, the man revealed a look of surprise. He did not expect the goods to be so good this time. "I'll give you an increase of 2 yuan. In the future, if you have good things, send them over," the man said again. After saying that, he went into the house. Not long after, he came out again and handed over a stack of cash. After counting, there was a total of more than 4,000 yuan. "Accept everything? Unlimited?" Jing Yunjiao asked. "That's right," the man said coldly. Jing Yunjiao immediately relaxed. Although the people in this house were a little strange, with this sale, at least she would not be short of money for the time being. Moreover, looking at the courtyard, there were many precious medicinal herbs. Not only was there a complete variety, but there were also a lot of them. It was obvious that the owner of this courtyard was not short of money and could afford some big transactions. Jing Yunjiao took the money and turned to leave. But just as he was about to step out of the door, he suddenly felt some movement in the room behind him. He couldn't help but turn around to take a look. "Master, I just received Codonapsis ginseng. The quality is quite rare." The person who came out was an old man. He looked a little scary. The middle-aged man just now was much more polite when he saw him. He also had a smile on his face. He was very kind and careful. Jing Yunjiao could not help but take a closer look at the old man. The old man had white hair and a ruddy complexion. He was quite elegant, but his white hair was messy and his clothes were a little sloppy. He was not very old, only in his 60s, but his eyes were lifeless, making people feel that he was a little pitiful. Jing Yunjiao's gaze was too eye-catching, and the old man immediately shot a sharp look at her. However, in the blink of an eye, the old man's pupils shrank. His body, which looked sharp just a moment ago, suddenly rushed towards Jing Yunjiao. Jing Yunjiao's reaction was fast. Seeing that the old man was acting strangely, she naturally hid as much as she could. However, the moment she stepped out of the door, the old man hurriedly shouted behind her, "Wait." His voice was a little shaky and desolate, which made Jing Yunjiao have a strange feeling in her heart. She could not help but turn her head. "What's your name?" The old man looked at her. His eyes were a little dazed, as if he was recalling something from the past. He was a little surprised and a little disappointed. His expression was so complicated that it was incomprehensible. Jing Yunjiao still said. Chapter 40. When the old man heard this, his expression became a little irritable. "Your surname is Jing. What's your father's name? What about your mother? Who else is in your family?" Jing Yunjiao found it even more strange. "I'm sorry, old man. I'm an orphan. I'm the only one in my family, Jing Yunjiao replied. Yi Qin was dead and she had left the Qiao family. She didn't know where her biological parents were, let alone whether they were dead or alive. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that she was an orphan. After saying this, the old man's brows knitted together. He reached out and pulled Jing Yunjiao back into the courtyard. Then you're a local? Do you know a woman with the surname Xu? She's about 40 years old. Jing Yunjiao was even more confused. She nodded and then shook her head. Her expression was a little petrified. The old man stared at her again and again. The disappointment on his face was even more obvious. Now that I take a closer look, she doesn't look like one. She's too young. Her eyebrows are so sharp and her eyes aren't gentle enough. She looks a little too heroic. The old man said something inexplicable. He exhaled and looked like he was about to collapse. The middle-aged man beside him hurried forward to support him. The old man waved his hand. My surname is Xu. I've offended you just now. I hope you don't mind. It's okay, old man. Jing Yunjiao looked at him and couldn't bear to blame him. The old man with the surname Xu looked very tired. He turned and walked into the house. But after taking a few steps, he turned back to look at her and said, Do you have any more goods to sell? Jing Yunjiao nodded. Yes, she had a lot. Come back tomorrow at this time. The old man said directly and didn't care about her anymore. Jing Yunjiao only felt a little baffled. She suddenly felt that it was no wonder that the person in the Chinese medicine room said that he was a strange old man. Just based on his image, there was no one as mysterious as him in Ningxiang County. However, he was just an old man. She wasn't worried that the old man would do anything to her. She still had the ability to protect herself. Jing Yunjiao directly returned to the place where he lived. When he arrived, Su Chu was already a little anxious, and there was a little boy sitting on the sofa at the side. He had a white and clean appearance and was also somewhat handsome. He should be Gan Jinchen. Cousin, you are much braver than us. Going out in the middle of the night, aren't you afraid of encountering bad people? Seeing her, Su Chu was relieved. I have some things to do. I'm sorry for making you guys worry. Jing Yunjiao was used to being ignored, so she didn't expect that there was someone waiting for her at home. Otherwise, she would have told her in advance. Gan Jinchen glanced at her and didn't say anything. He went straight back into the house without saying a word. Jing Yunjiao understood the meaning behind those eyes. Obviously, there was some disdain and suspicion. After all, old man Gan had taken her in as his god-granddaughter. As his own grandson, wouldn't he feel a little uncomfortable? Moreover, her reputation was so bad. Cousin has a strange temper. Ignore him. Su Chu was lively. She stuck out her tongue at Gan Jinchen's back. Thinking of the strange old man's instructions, Jing Yunjiao simply explained to Su Chu so that she wouldn't continue to worry the next day. However, the matter of selling medicinal herbs was a little strange after all, so naturally, she didn't mention it. By the way, Chu Chu, I heard you mention the exam yesterday. Is it the one Grandpa requested? Jing Yunjiao suddenly thought of something and asked. Su Chu's face was bitter. She suddenly raised her voice and said, Isn't that right? Cousin and I have been set a goal by Grandpa since we were young. We must study medicine in the future, even if it's Western medicine. So, he has been asking us to take an exam every month. The questions are so difficult that it makes people's hair stand on end. No. Cousin, how do you know it's Grandpa's request? Could it be that he made you? Suddenly, Su Chu was stunned. Chapter 41. Grandpa was too good at toying with people, right? Su Chu pursed her lips, full of confusion. After all, she and her cousin had been memorizing medical books since they were young. Even if they were a little stupid, after a long period of accumulation and nurturing, they still had some foundation. If they sharpened their guns at the last minute, they could still deal with those exams. But Jing Yunjiao, even though her grades were good, most of the things in the medical books were obscure and difficult to understand. Even now, she still didn't understand those ancient words, let alone Jing Yunjiao who had never come into contact with these before. You're finished. Cousin, you don't know, But Grandpa is absolutely serious about medical skills. When it's time for the exam, don't write anything you don't know. Even if you hand in a blank paper, it's definitely better than writing nonsense. Su Chu looked at Jing Yunjiao with a sympathetic look, as if she could see what she would experience in the future. In terms of medical skills, even though Jing Yunjiao wasn't proficient, she could still get started. Her starting point was higher than others. If she couldn't think of something, she just had to search for it in the spirit jade and try to understand it. And even if she couldn't understand it for the time being, those things wouldn't dissipate in her mind. Su Chu didn't know that much. Her chatterbox was suddenly opened, and she kept complaining. Listening to her words, Grandpa Gan's punishment system was still very strict. If they handed in a blank paper, it meant that they didn't work hard. The punishment they received was mostly to copy a medical book a few times and so on. But if they wrote nonsense, they would feel that there was a problem with their attitude. In this case, not only would their pocket money be deducted, but they would also be directly brought back for supervision. Not only would they have to be taught some principles, but they would also have to be brought in for morning jogging every day. They would also have to participate in clothing, food, housing, and transportation. Jing Yunjiao really admired this god-grandfather. After all, there weren't many doctors with such medical ethics these days. The next day, the school was still as usual. At night, Jing Yunjiao went to the alley as promised. What she brought was a basket of snakebed seeds. The scene this time was different from yesterday. She knocked on the door less than 3 times, and the door was already open. Moreover, the old man was sitting in the middle of the courtyard, staring at her with a serious face. His gaze made people's hair stand on end. Even Jing Yunjiao felt terrified. These herbs are not bad. Do you know what they are used for? The old man said in a strange tone. The corner of Jing Yunjiao's mouth twitched. Codonapsis pelocula is often used to injure the qi and body, or to weaken the qi and blood. Nidium pelocula is mostly used to warm the kidney and strengthen the yang. It's not the right time to pick these things. The old man acted as if he didn't hear what she said and continued, snakebite seeds need to be concocted during the hottest days of the summer for the medicinal effects to be at its best. It's not right for you to send it over now. It was only spring. How could they harvest these 2 kinds of medicinal herbs in this season? When Jing Yunjiao heard this, her face immediately turned pale. She didn't think so much. Old man Shu, I'll take back these snake beds. I won't sell them, Jing Yunjiao said. She was a little worried that this old man would continue to ask her about harvesting. Keep them. They're quite good. The old man glanced at her. Come with me. After saying that, he didn't wait for Jing Yunjiao's response and directly walked to the backyard. Jing Yunjiao was a little puzzled, but after thinking about it, she followed closely behind. She saw that the old man was neither slow nor slow. The backyard was a big shed. The terrain was slightly higher, and the ground was covered with moisture-proof lime. It was full of medicinal herbs. If you don't even know the concocting season of the medicinal herbs, who would dare to buy the herbs you sell in the future? So you should come here every day to learn. The knack for this is very deep. You have some good medicinal herbs in your hands. Don't waste them. The old man's expression was still the same. She couldn't see his intentions. However, when she saw these medicinal herbs, Jing Yunjiao was a little tempted. She also learned about the concocting of medicinal herbs, but the things in the spirit jade were different from what she saw with her own eyes. Chapter 42. Jing Yunjiao always felt a sense of closeness to this old man with the surname Shu. She always felt that although this old man was sarcastic, he wasn't a bad person. He wasn't like the people she met in her previous life. Although they were smiling on the surface, their hearts were very sinister. Thank you, Uncle Shu. I'll definitely come to learn on time in the future. Jing Yunjiao raised the corner of her mouth, revealing a trace of a kind smile. In that case, you can only leave after you memorize this book today. Old man Shu wasn't polite at all. He directly threw a book over, turned around, and went out of the door, directly locking Jing Yunjiao in this warehouse. There was enough light in this warehouse. She opened the book and saw that it was about the planting and harvesting of medicinal herbs. This book wasn't thick, but if a normal person kept memorizing it, it would take at least 1 or 2 days. However, ever since Jing Yunjiao absorbed the spirit jade, her memory had improved by a lot. Looking at the book filled with pictures and text, she looked at the tightly shut door and helplessly sat down. Taking advantage of the fact that there was no one around, she directly entered her space and began to memorize with peace of mind. In the space, time passed much slower. By the time she finished memorizing it, more than 3 hours had passed in the outside world. She knocked on the door. After a while, the man who collected medicinal herbs came over, opened the door, took her book, and said directly, "If you want to go out, recite it first." Jing Yunjiao was a little speechless towards this master and disciple. But after all, the other party had good intentions, so Jing Yunjiao directly opened her mouth to recite. It took a lot of effort to memorize a book with more than 200 pages. However, the disciple listened carefully and didn't miss a word. Occasionally, she would ask carefully if she didn't hear clearly. When she saw that Jing Yunjiao said it correctly, she would let her go. Jing Yunjiao wasn't a person who would do things half-heartedly. Since she promised to learn, she naturally put her heart and soul into it. By the time she finished memorizing, it was already late. Every word is correct. You can go now. In the future, come on time. This is the money for today's medicine. The disciple's temper was even more straightforward than the master's. After she finished speaking, she also turned and left. Jing Yunjiao had a few thousand yuan in his hand. In addition to yesterday's income, he had already earned more than 10,000 yuan. He had never thought that he could earn money so quickly in his previous life. Outside, the moon was bright and the stars were sparse. The air was much better than inside the warehouse. Taking a deep breath, Jing Yunjiao retraced his steps. However, just as he exited the alley, a few people walked toward him under the streetlight. Jing Yunjiao did not dare to miss a single second. His mind was still digesting the contents of the spirit jade when he was stopped by someone. He raised his head and met Lu Jio's aggressive eyes. Ever since Lu Jio was beaten up that day, she had been recuperating at home. Right now, her face was still a little red and swollen. No matter how you looked at it, it felt unnatural. "I was wondering who it was. Isn't this our school's famous Jing Yunjiao? I just saw you walking out of that alley. What's wrong? Strolling alone in such a remote place in the middle of the night? Don't tell me you're hiding a man in there." Lu Jio's face was full of ridicule. Her eyes seemed to be spitting fire. Thinking back to the day when Jing Yunjiao pinned her to the ground and gave her a ruthless slap, she felt that she had lost all her face. At that time, there was a teacher protecting her. She couldn't do anything to her. Instead, she was reprimanded by her parents. However, now that they were outside and there were no surveillance cameras, she didn't believe that Jing Yunjiao would be able to take advantage of her this time. Chapter 43. The moment she saw Lu Jio, Jing Yunjiao thought of the phrase "enemies meet on a narrow road." Lu Jio's personality was more carefree. Even though her looks weren't as exquisite and pleasant as Qiao Hongye's, she was still considered lucky to have a few older cousins who doted on her. As the red in a sea of greenery, even though Lu Jio wasn't a beauty, these older cousins still doted on her a lot. They even frequently went to the school gate to pick up this younger cousin of theirs from school. Behind Lu Jio stood 4 boys. The oldest was in his 20s and the youngest was around 17 or 18. "She's Jing Yunjiao? That wild brat you were talking about?" one of them asked angrily. "Third cousin, she's the one who framed me. I was clearly the one who was at a disadvantage, but she wrongly accused me of hitting her in front of the teachers. Because her parents don't believe me." Lu Jio complained angrily. "What a bitch. Judge, don't worry. Big brother will definitely avenge you." As soon as third Biaoji finished speaking, the 4 of them immediately formed a circle, trapping Jing Yunjiao inside. Lu Jio stood outside with a smug face. "Big brother, there are many people outside. Bring her to the alley first." At this time, the night was dark and the wind was strong. There wasn't even a stray cat. She didn't believe that she could let Jing Yunjiao escape. Moreover, once she entered the alley, even if she was beaten into a steamed bun, no one would know who did it. Taking advantage of the fact that there were many people, Lu Jiao directly dragged Jing Yunjiao and threatened her into the alley. There weren't many people on this street and there weren't any surveillance cameras. No one would notice. Jing Yunjiao's eyes flashed with a trace of gloominess. She seemed to be very cooperative and half pushed her all the way to the bottom of a dark wall. Damn brat, you're quite pretty. But for someone like you, even if you were given to us brothers, we wouldn't take a fancy to you. Judge, tell us what to do. We'll help you look after her. You can do whatever you want, another cousin said. Lu Jiao spat on the ground and rubbed her saliva before stepping forward. Jing Yunjiao, why don't you kneel down and beg me? Maybe I'll be soft-hearted and let you go. Jing Yunjiao clenched his fists as he recalled the martial arts styles in his mind. Stop acting all high and mighty. Do you believe that I won't strip you naked? It's so cold, and it looks like it's going to rain soon. If you don't have any clothes, you might freeze to death here. Oh right, I also brought my phone. I'll take a few pictures of you naked later and make sure you can't stay in Ningxiang County forever. Lu Jiao was like an excited rooster, squawking non-stop. But after calling for a long time, Jing Yunjiao did not respond. Especially in the darkness, that sinister appearance was like that of a ghost. It was very frightening. Lu Jiao widened her eyes, waiting to see Jing Yunjiao lose his head out of fear. However, after a while, she saw Jing Yunjiao's lips curl into a terrifying smile. What are you laughing at? Lu Jiao's eyes almost popped out. Jing Yunjiao raised an eyebrow and reached out to take off the thin jacket she was wearing. Yo, so proactive. Let me tell you, my cousins won't fall for it. Lu Jiao rolled her eyes and mocked. Unfortunately, just as she finished speaking, she saw Jing Yunjiao wrap the thin jacket around his hand like a boxing glove. She did not know what he was up to. Are you looking for a beating? Lu Jiao roared again. Bang. However, just as the voice fell, Jing Yunjiao threw a punch at her nose. After wrapping the jacket, the strength was somewhat soft. However, Jing Yunjiao's strength was not ordinary. This punch was not light. When the brothers saw this, they were immediately annoyed and reached out to grab Jing Yunjiao. Chapter 44. Even if they only practiced martial arts at night, it wasn't for nothing. Before their hands could reach over, Jing Yunjiao's legs swept fiercely, directly attacking their lower bodies. They immediately staggered back a few steps. Jing Yunjiao's move caused everyone to be stunned. However, before they could recover, they heard Lu Jiao cover her nose in exasperation and shout, "Brother, my nose is bleeding. It hurts." That one sentence pulled the four people back from their shock. Their anger grew stronger, and with a surge of strength, they swung their fists fiercely and smashed over. Jing Yunjiao's body dodged, and he was a little stiff. The fist brushed past his ear, and his heart shrank fiercely. His eyes looked like he wanted to eat someone. He kicked over, but another person's hand flashed past his chest, and he instantly grabbed his wrist and twisted it fiercely. The last time with Lu Jiao, it was just her being beaten up, but this time was different. This was the first time such a scene had happened in her 2 lives. However, she felt that these people's movements weren't as fast as she imagined. Although it was a little difficult to deal with them, it wasn't to the extent of being defeated. After all, her cousins were men. Had they ever been tormented by a woman like this? Everyone's eyes turned red with anger. Especially when Lu Jiao was still insulting Jing Yunjiao from the side, it made their blood boil. They couldn't wait to take out a knife and end Jing Yunjiao's life. That eldest Biaoji was a man in his 20s after all, so he had quite the strength. Adding on to the fact that they had the numbers advantage, he took advantage of the fact that Jing Yunjiao was dealing with the other 3 to throw a rock at her. The few people's eyes turned red with anger. Only Lu Jiao saw it clearly, and she was shocked. The stone was very sharp. If it hit him, he would definitely be seriously injured. It might even take his life. After all, she was a 15-year-old girl. Seeing this scene, she couldn't help but panic. However, the arrow had already been narked, and she couldn't stop it in time. Even when she saw Jing Yunjiao's disgusting face, she didn't want to speak. With a bang, the stone fell to the ground. Third cousin. Lu Jiao was dumbfounded when she saw him. Third cousin fell to the ground with blood all over his head. Following this sharp voice, the eldest cousin was also stunned. The corners of his lips trembled, and he was somewhat in disbelief. He had clearly aimed at Jing Yunjiao just now, but in the blink of an eye, Jing Yunjiao had dodged it. Not only had he dodged it, but Old Third had also inexplicably fallen under his rock. That's right, he had seen it. Jing Yunjiao had sensed that he was about to make a move. Even though she knew that she would hit Third Brother if she dodged, she still dodged without hesitation. Furthermore, she had looked at him with a mocking expression at that moment. She did it on purpose. Third cousin was currently twitching on the ground, blood bubbling out of his head. After a while, that person actually stopped moving. Lu Jiao shakily picked up the phone, but it was snatched away by the cousin. You can't call the police. If you call the police, I'm done for. His life is over. He was the one who took the stone, and he was also the one who hit her. If she called the police, he would definitely be arrested. Eldest cousin. I'm begging you. Third cousin is about to die. Lu Jiao's tears kept falling. She was scared out of her wits as she hurriedly begged. She had 4 aunts, and although these 4 cousins weren't biological brothers, they had always had a good relationship. But now, her eldest cousin wasn't allowing her to call the police. What should she do? Was she supposed to watch her third cousin bleed to death? At that moment, Jing Yunjiao gave him a cold glance before striding away. You can't leave. The eldest cousin shouted as though he had gone mad. Jing Yunjiao stopped in her tracks, and the corner of her mouth revealed a mocking smile. You were the one who killed him. You were the one who took the stone. You were the one who killed him. The eldest cousin shouted crazily. Chapter 45. As soon as the eldest cousin finished speaking, not only were the other 2 cousins dumbfounded, but even Lu Jiao looked at him in disbelief. But at this time, the eldest cousin was already possessed. He glared fiercely at Lu Jiao. If it weren't for the fact that I wanted to avenge you, things wouldn't have turned out like this. Lu Jiao's eyes reddened again. She felt wronged. But thinking about it carefully, the eldest cousin was right. Now that the third cousin was like this, the third aunt would definitely not let her go. But if the eldest cousin was punished because of her, the eldest aunt would also be angry. Her parents were already very dissatisfied with her recently. Right now, only by letting Jing Yunjiao shoulder this matter would she be able to save Biaoji from disaster. At that time, the third aunt's anger would also be transferred to Jing Yunjiao, and she might not be attacked by everyone. There seemed to be a demon in her heart inciting her. Looking at the bloody third cousin on the ground and the indifferent Jing Yunjiao, a layer of hatred emerged in Lu Jiao's heart. If it weren't for Jing Yunjiao, all of them would be fine. Eldest cousin. Hurry up and call the police. Don't let Jing Yunjiao run away. Lu Jiao's words immediately made her position clear. The other 2 Biaoji's were already panicking to the point of no return. They knew that they couldn't escape from the responsibility of this matter. Once they heard Lu Jiao's words, they didn't dare to say anything more. In their hearts, they also hoped that Jing Yunjiao, that wild brat, would bear the responsibility of this matter. They were all children with parents. If something really happened, their families would be heartbroken. But Jing Yunjiao was different. Wasn't she an orphan? Then even if she went to prison, no one would be sad. At this time, the few of them were on the same side. The eldest cousin finally breathed a sigh of relief. He held the phone with trembling hands and called the police. However, these people were still young after all. At this time, such a big change had happened, and they even forgot the most important evidence. Of course, with Jing Yunjiao here, it was impossible for these people to erase the fingerprints on the stone. The police cars and ambulances arrived quickly. Seeing the young faces present, the police officers' faces turned ugly. Jing Yunjiao had never thought of leaving, so when he got into the car, he was very straightforward. As for the third cousin, although he had lost a lot of blood, he was not dead. He was carried into the ambulance and left quickly. Police uncle, it was Jing Yunjiao who did it. She was the one who smashed third cousin. Lu Jiao's face was filled with horror as she tried her best to calm down. That's right. It was her. Officer, look at all the big and small injuries on our bodies. She knows martial arts. She was the one who hit us. The eldest cousin's eyes were red and he was a little impatient. The other two lowered their heads in fear and trepidation, neither saying anything nor refuting. This matter had already been notified to all the parents, and presumably, they would arrive soon. Jing Yunjiao had already severed ties with the Qiao family, so no one could contact him. Finally, after thinking about it, he only informed Gan Songbai, his grandfather. She also didn't want to trouble Grandpa Gan because of her own matters, but after all, she was living in Grandpa Gan's house. Now that she was in the police station, she should give him an explanation so that they wouldn't worry. Jing Yunjiao didn't speak the whole time. She just waited patiently for Gan Songbai to arrive. If there wasn't an adult present, some words would be useless. Before Gan Songbai arrived, Lu Jia's mother and 3 aunts had already arrived. They were all women. The men in the family should be in the hospital at this time, but these women were really scary. The moment they entered, they had a vicious look on their faces. Chapter 46. In Jing Yunjiao's previous life, when she accidentally killed Qiao Weimin in self-defense, Qiao Hongye and the Qiao family's friends were also like this. They rushed over angrily and looked at her as if they wanted to eat her alive. "Mom, how's cousin now?" Lu Jia's eldest cousin immediately asked when he saw his family. Her eldest aunt sighed. "We don't know the situation yet. Anyway, the doctor said it was quite serious when we came over. He lost too much blood and might not be able to be saved." When she said this, her eldest cousin heaved a sigh of relief. Jing Yunjiao coldly looked at his expression, her eyes full of disdain. He said that they were cousins who had a good relationship, but now, in order to protect himself, he wanted someone else to die. Without the testimony of the person involved, he would be able to push all the blame to her. This kind of person made her want to vomit. "It's all your fault, Jing Yunjiao. If it wasn't for you, my 3rd cousin wouldn't be like this." Lu Jia shouted at the top of her lungs when she thought of how well her 3rd cousin usually treated her. Jing Yunjiao didn't want to say anything, but when he heard her say this in front of so many people, he couldn't hold it in anymore. "Because of me. You were the ones who stopped me from fighting. You were also the ones who injured your own people. Now you're pushing all the blame onto me. What kind of logic is this?" Lu Jia panicked when she heard this. "Nonsense. You were the one who threw a rock at my 3rd cousin. Heh. So you also know that it was a rock?" Jing Yunjiao coldly snorted. "Uncle Policeman, such a big thing happened. I'm sure that the assault weapon was brought back. At most, it'll be fine after a test. There's the victim's blood and the perpetrator's fingerprints on it, isn't there?" When he said this, everyone present was stunned. Things happened too suddenly. They had completely forgotten about the rock and only wanted to push the blame onto Fang Zhengji, especially that eldest Biaoji. His originally somewhat handsome face was now somewhat malevolent. He was at a loss out of fear as he glared at Jing Yunjiao. His heart was in a mess. Suddenly, he saw the jacket that Jing Yunjiao was holding. He suddenly thought of something and his eyes brightened. "No. Jing Yunjiao was wearing a jacket when he hit us. She had wrapped her hands with her jacket when she took the stone, so there were no fingerprints on it. As for me, in order to stop her, I snatched it from her, so it's stained with my blood." Eldest cousin hurriedly explained. This strange expression made the police officer frown. Even his own mother found it strange. However, he was his son after all. How could he not believe him? She angrily rebuked Jing Yunjiao with a sorrowful face. "How can there be such a vicious and merciless girl like you in this world? If anything happens to my nephew, even if we have to spend all our money, we'll make sure you're in jail. Don't be so absolute." Jing Yunjiao swept a glance at the woman before looking at the eldest Biaoji and said, "Yes, I did use my jacket to cover my hand, but from the creases on my jacket, you can tell that it only covered one hand. If I wanted to pick up a rock, I wouldn't be able to do it with only one hand. Uncle Policeman, the reason why I did this wasn't to erase the traces. It was because I knew that it was hard to see clearly in the middle of the night. Since I was only defending myself, I didn't want to cause accidental injuries to others because of a momentary mistake. Wrapping my jacket like this can reduce the force." Jing Yunjiao didn't expect things to develop like this. Her original plan was to not leave any traces and teach them a lesson, so that these people wouldn't be able to point their fingers at her. However, the moment the other party picked up the stone, she suddenly felt a chill in her heart. There was clearly no hatred between the two of them, but the other party wanted to kill her. Chapter 47. She hadn't learned martial arts for long, so she wasn't proficient. When she was entangled with them, she was pulled back many times, but she didn't suffer any major injuries. So at that time, the one who fell to the ground was her. With Lu Jia's personality, if she fell to the ground and didn't get up, what greeted her wouldn't be an ambulance, but abandonment. It was already raining outside. Although it wasn't heavy, it was enough to erase a lot of traces. At that time, even if she bled to death in the rainy night, no one would know who did it. So when the other party was ruthless, she had already thought of this. At this moment, compared to eldest Biaoji's words, Jing Yunjiao's words were obviously more reasonable. Moreover, even though the wounds on the other people's faces and bodies were very obvious, Jing Yunjiao's face also had some scratches. Also, her arm was obviously injured. For men fighting against a girl like Jing Yunjiao, no matter how one looked at it, it wouldn't be the latter who came looking for trouble. You shameless, immoral ghost. My nephew's life and death is unknown, yet you still dare to say this. Didn't your parents teach you how to be a person? You say it wasn't you, then who else could it be? It could be my son who did it. Police officer, my son's relationship with his nephews has always been very good, even closer than blood brothers. The woman raised her voice and howled again. What a good even closer than blood brothers. At the critical moment, the one who didn't let the police was your son. If it wasn't for him delaying for a while, maybe the injured one wouldn't be as serious as now. The woman's confident and unintentional words made the eldest cousin's face turn pale. The others shrunk their necks fiercely, looking like they were completely frightened. Police officer, my granddaughter wouldn't take the initiative to look for trouble. The woman had just finished howling when Gan Songbai's voice came from behind her. Jing Yunjiao heard this and felt a little touched, and couldn't help but feel grateful. Although she recognized this god-grandfather, she and Gan Songbai had only met a few times. She didn't know much about him. But she had been to the police station twice. The first time, Gan Songbai helped her without hesitation, and this time, he clearly knew that it was a serious crime to injure and even murder, but he still trusted her. This kind of attitude, even a blood grandfather might not be able to do it. Jing Yunjiao sighed in his heart, and so did Gan Songbai. From the bottom of his heart, he liked this little girl who had medical skills. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come forward again and again. This girl was only 15 years old, but she had already come to such a place twice in such a short period of time. She was so young and yet she was already being questioned by so many people. Who knew how she was going to survive in the future? She had no parents. As her god-grandfather, if he didn't help her out, wouldn't her life be even more difficult? Grandpa. Jing Yunjiao stood up. He was grateful to the old man, and his eyes couldn't help but moisten. Girl, Grandpa knows you've been wronged. Don't worry, as long as you're innocent, no one will do anything to you. Gan Songbai immediately comforted her. She's aggrieved. Look at what you've done to our child. It's fine if it's just a few hits, but there's one lying in the hospital right now. The long-winded woman continued to chatter. Girl, tell Grandpa, what's going on? Gan Songbai's heart was also shocked, but he still calmed down and asked Jing Yunjiao. Jing Yunjiao didn't add oil to the fire. She only told the truth about the few people she met on the road. Her memory was pretty good, so from beginning to end, she didn't miss a single word. Whatever the other party said or did, she didn't hide anything. Chapter 48. When Jing Yunjiao finished explaining everything, Lu Jia's expression turned into horror. She looked at her as if she had seen a ghost. What she said wasn't fake, but she didn't leave anything out. Such an abnormal memory really made people feel terrified. I don't believe it. My son doesn't even know you, why would he stop you? I think they saw you doing something improper, so they came forward to persuade you. Not only did you not listen, you even used violence against them. That big cousin's mother said aggressively. If it was really like what this girl said, then wouldn't her son's life be over? Anyway, no matter what, she didn't believe it. Her son was hers. How could she not know what kind of character he had? Now I know why your son would do this kind of framing thing. It turns out he learned it from you, his mother. If the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. Jing Yunjiao looked coldly and said without any trace of politeness. You unlucky child. When the woman heard it, she reached out and wanted to pounce over. Jing Yunjiao moved her body to the side, causing the woman to miss and fall to the ground. Jing Yunjiao saw this and said, Police uncle, the probability of this kind of thing happening isn't small. You also saw it. Also, although I'm young, I won't let others wrongly accuse me. First, I didn't wantonly pick a fight. Second, there are no fingerprints. Just based on the one-sided words of these jackals of the same tribe, it's impossible. Although the other side had a lot of people, there was no conclusive evidence. She couldn't admit it no matter what. Jing Yunjiao's words were powerful and powerful. Her gaze was firm like a stone. Everyone who saw it felt like a knife was scraping their hearts. That's right. You think you can win because you have a lot of people? Isn't there still one lying in the hospital? When he wakes up, I think the truth will be revealed. Gan Songbai said angrily. At this time, no matter how they argued, it was hard to say who was right and who was wrong. That place was remote. There wasn't even a surveillance camera. They still needed to investigate carefully. Both sides didn't want to admit defeat. They stared at each other for the whole night. The next morning, the hospital finally called. The operation was over. He's in a vegetative state from excessive blood loss. The woman who answered the phone was shocked. She looked at them and said into the phone, We haven't found anything yet. That girl doesn't admit it. She said that her fingerprints weren't on the weapon. The voices were getting softer and softer. Jing Yunjiao was too lazy to listen to them. They were just slandering her. However, the word vegetative made Lu Jiao and her cousins feel much better. However, the news that made them happy only lasted for a short while. The police officer also received a call with a solemn expression. When the call ended, he looked at Lu Jiao, Jing Yunjiao, and the others with a serious expression on their faces. There's news from our colleagues who went to investigate the case this morning. A resident in the opposite building happened to see you. The police officer paused. Although you're young, the nature of this case is quite serious. While there's still time, it's better to turn yourself in. It'll be too late in a few seconds. Jing Yunjiao curled his lips, but his expression remained unchanged. As for Lu Jiao and the others, their faces turned pale once more. The police officer had been observing their behavior. At this time, he already knew what was going on. This group of children were still young. After experiencing such a big change, it was impossible to hide it without any flaws. I didn't do it. Suddenly, one of the cousins who hadn't uttered a word all night shouted in horror, It was a complete accident. Boss, he accidentally did it. It has nothing to do with us. Chapter 49. The one who spoke was the youngest cousin other than Lu Jiao. He was only 17 years old, so his mental fortitude was naturally weaker. After a night of torture, his eyes didn't have much vigor. He looked listless with a pair of panda eyes. His body was still trembling, and even the corners of his clothes were wrinkled and deformed from his pinching. Jing Yunjiao sympathized with him. He had been hanging his head for the entire night, and his neck was a little stiff. We really didn't do it on purpose. The young cousin cried as he looked at the woman beside him. Jia was in a bad mood. We wanted to make her happy and wanted to bring her to a nearby KTV to sing. We didn't expect to meet Jing Yunjiao on the way. She was alone, and we thought we could teach her a lesson. So we brought her to an alley and beat her up. But we didn't expect that we couldn't beat her. Eldest cousin panicked and took a rock, but she dodged it and hit third brother instead. Her cries were heart-wrenching. After enduring for an entire night, the fear in her heart had multiplied. That's right. That's what happened. On the other side, the remaining second cousin shrank back and said with reddened eyes, You're talking nonsense. It was Jing Yunjiao who did it. The eldest cousin stood up instantly and rushed toward fourth brother like the wind. He swung his arm around the other party's nose. 2 streams of blood flowed out of the other party's mouth as he fell to the side. He had fainted from fear. The moment this happened, the surrounding policemen couldn't sit still. They immediately went forward to hold him back. "I didn't do it. Mom, you have to believe me. It's all Jing Yunjiao's fault. It's all her fault. Jia, tell them. Tell them that this has nothing to do with me." The eldest cousin went completely crazy. He clamored like a wild beast, anxious and scared. Lu Jia was only a 15-year-old girl. She had never seen such a scene before. She knew very well that they were finished the moment the eldest cousin spoke. She was finished too. Tears streamed down her face as she squatted on the ground. She hugged her head and cried, "Eldest cousin didn't do it on purpose. We only wanted to teach Jing Yunjiao a lesson. It's because Jing Yunjiao dodged it that it ended up like this. Lu Jia, you scourge, you're also spouting nonsense, you're also spouting nonsense." Eldest cousin's legs were quite long. Even though his upper body was being pulled, he still kicked Lu Jia in anger. Not only was the eldest cousin angry, even the 3 aunts present seemed to have gone crazy, looking at Lu Jia with eyes full of disgust. In the previous generation of the Lu family, there was only one male, and that was Lu Jia's father. However, the 4 daughters of the Lu family that were married off all gave birth to sons. Only Lu Jia's father only gave birth to a daughter. Although it was a pity, there was only one girl among the same generation after all. She was more or less special, so they usually doted on her more. However, they didn't expect that the girl they had always doted on would bring such a big disaster to their families. At this moment, the injured third cousin's parents had also rushed over and happened to see this scene. "Jia, we didn't do anything wrong to you. How could you harm us like this?" The cries came in waves. Jing Yunjiao also exhaled. Sympathy? Not at all. She was calmer than ever. Some people looked sad when they were pitiful, but when they were hateful, they were like wild beasts that would bite. The police officer also heaved a sigh of relief. There were indeed people in the residential building across the street who saw them, but they only saw Lu Jia and a few people provoking them. Later on, when they went to the alley, due to the darkness, no one saw what happened inside. Furthermore, due to their young age, no one expected such an incident to happen. No matter what, the truth of the matter had been revealed. Chapter 50. After confirming the testimony and going through all the procedures, Jing Yunjiao finally left the police station. Before he left, the cries and curses from inside were so noisy that he couldn't get any rest. "I've already informed your teacher before we came. Since you've caused such a big commotion, you shouldn't go to school today. Go back and relax," Gan Songbai sighed as he looked at Jing Yunjiao and comforted her. Jing Yunjiao nodded. Today was Friday, and there were no classes tomorrow or the day after. Her grades had always been good, and she had already learned a lot of things. It was rare that she could save some time, so it was better to use it on her medical skills and martial arts. Especially after this incident, she felt that she was too weak. If she had enough time to practice martial arts, those people wouldn't even be able to get close to her. Unlike now, although she made the other party suffer, her face and body were also left with a lot of scars. Touching the slight scratch on her face, Jing Yunjiao's mood was complicated. That. Gan Songbai wanted to say something but hesitated. After thinking for a bit, he opened his mouth and asked, "Girl, although the law and order in this county is good, you are still young. Don't run around at night, especially that place. It's all dark alleys. If something really happened, there wouldn't be any evidence." Gan Songbai had good intentions. Jing Yunjiao was clear in her heart. If she was Gan Songbai's biological granddaughter, he wouldn't be so gentle in persuading her. Maybe he would have already angrily reprimanded her. But Grandpa Gan was right. Although she knew martial arts, with her age and walking around alone, it was simply tempting others to commit a crime. "I know, Grandpa. I won't go at night in the future," Jing Yunjiao replied. Gan Songbai was a bit puzzled. Won't go at night? That meant she still wanted to go to that place. Jing Yunjiao and the Qiao family had already broken off their relationship. Logically speaking, the possibility of interacting with those relatives wasn't big. Why would she keep thinking about going to that place? Gan Songbai was already quite old, and Jing Yunjiao was a girl. Moreover, they weren't blood-related, so there were some things that weren't appropriate to ask. He thought to go back and chat with that girl, Chu Chu, and ask her to show more concern. After sending Gan Songbai off, Jing Yunjiao went to the medicinal market again and bought a lot of seeds. She had 10,000 yuan in her hands, so the seeds she bought were a lot more complete. In addition to some seedlings, the money was spent in the blink of an eye. On the way back, she didn't forget to inform Uncle Shu that it wasn't convenient for her to go over at night. It was just that this old man's temper was really strange. When he heard Jing Yunjiao's words, he thought that she was shirking her responsibilities and slacking off. With a wave of his hand, he directly threw her dozens of books and requested that she go once a week. Every time she went, she had to recite at least 5 books. Otherwise, no matter how good her medicinal ingredients were, he was determined not to buy them. Although this request was a bit excessive, Jing Yunjiao gladly agreed. With the space, her time was 5 times that of ordinary people. Moreover, she could find these books in the spirit jade, so it was more convenient for her to memorize them. It wasn't difficult. For 3 days, Jing Yunjiao locked herself in her room. Unless it was necessary, she rarely showed her face. In the space, she spent half a month reciting and practicing martial arts almost day and night. When she came out, she clearly felt that her body was a lot lighter. Her whole body had lost a lot of weight. However, compared to before, her skin was a lot better. It wasn't as dark as before and didn't have any temperament. And in the school, there was no sign of Lu Jia. Chapter 51. Because this matter was too serious, Lu Jia's parents had already handled the procedures for her to drop out of school. Lu Jia's cousin had also been locked up. Although it was an accident, because he didn't call the police in time, it caused the injured to be more injured. In the end, he ended up in a vegetative state. As for Lu Jia, although she was not yet an adult, her guardian did have a certain responsibility, and compensation was inevitable. However, Lu Jia's parents' generation had completely broken off because of this matter. Her aunts no longer doted on her as much as they did before. Instead, they were extremely resentful. Jing Yunjiao's life also changed a lot because of this matter. In the past, her classmates looked at her with disdain or dislike, but now, it had completely turned into fear. Outside, Jing Yunjiao was even more mysterious than before. There were even people who said that Lu Jia had called a lot of brothers from the underworld, but they still couldn't defeat Jing Yunjiao. They said that Jing Yunjiao had strange martial arts skills and even had a big brother from the underworld helping her from behind. Hearing these rumors, Jing Yunjiao only felt that it was funny. Yunjiao, isn't your attitude a little too good? Do you know what the people in class think of you? Xiao Haiqing nudged her arm and asked in a low voice while they were in class. Xiao Haiqing couldn't figure out how there could be such a weirdo like Jing Yunjiao in the world. Not only did she cause trouble every 2 or 3 days, but it was getting worse and worse. Yet, she acted as if nothing had happened. During class, she was just as usual. The only abnormal thing was that when she talked about things on a daily basis, there would always be some messy names of drugs that they couldn't understand. What can I do when the mouth is on someone else's face? Jing Yunjiao was also helpless. Previously, she wanted to regain her good reputation, but just as her reputation improved a little, Lu Jia's incident happened. Now, everyone knew that she had martial arts in the alley in the middle of the night. Who would be brave enough to be friends with her like Suchu and Xiao Haiqing? Even Suchu had been looking at her like she was looking at a monster these days. She couldn't help but ask her if she had any other heroic deeds in the past. Now, even people from other schools know that you're a violent person. Xiao Haiqing was amused at the mention of this word. Look at your matchstick body. You call yourself a violent person? You're more like a paperman who will run away when the wind blows. Have you ever seen a 2D person eat 3 bowls of rice for a meal? Jing Yunjiao asked in amusement. Ever since she started practicing martial arts, her appetite had skyrocketed. Every time Xiao Haiqing saw her eating, she would be shocked. Oh right, Next Saturday is Yi Qing's birthday. Xiao Haiqing glanced at the student committee member in front of her and whispered, "What does that have to do with me?" Jing Yunjiao curled his lips. She liked women like Xiao Haiqing. She didn't act pretentious and was straightforward. As for that Yi Qing, she was completely like a rich missy. Her face was filled with pride. The way she looked at others was either with sympathy or disdain. Even when making friends, one had to weigh the other's worth first. Are you stupid? With Yi Qing's personality, do you think she'll stop after her birthday? I heard she already booked a few tables at Shanghai restaurant. If nothing goes wrong, then as long as it's not one of the bottom 10 students, she'll definitely invite everyone, except you. Xiao Haiqing said with a face full of schadenfreude. Jing Yunjiao was stunned. She didn't think of this at all. In her past life, she was someone who stayed away from the crowd. She didn't remember getting invited, nor did she attend any gatherings. In this life, her reputation was even scarier. Who dared to invite her? However, isn't this good? I don't have time to waste. Jing Yunjiao was actually very happy. Time was life, so she had to save as much as possible. Chapter 52. Xiao Haiqing, upon hearing this, couldn't help but roll her eyes. Do you understand or not? This is discrimination. Her birthday indeed has nothing to do with us, but she can't discriminate. When other people bring this up, who knows how they'll laugh at you? It's not like you don't know what these people think. Are you prepared to spend your entire 3 years of high school under suspicion and isolation? Xiao Haiqing said earnestly. If it wasn't for the fact that they were still in class, then she probably wouldn't be able to hold back from slamming the table. Jing Yunjiao looked at Yi Qing, who was sitting in the front row. Then what do you think we should do? Isn't it even more ridiculous to come uninvited? Hihi, actually I've already booked a VIP room for you. When the time comes, all we need to do is order a table full of dishes and enjoy. Xiao Haiqing said with a wink. Fragrant Sea Restaurant was the county's largest and most mysterious restaurant. Even a single one of them was hard to find, and the price was also very high. Although Yi Qing's family background wasn't bad, but at the same time she was also a bit stingy, so she definitely wouldn't book a VIP room. She and Jing Yunjiao also didn't need to get involved. When the time comes, all they needed to do was to appear upstairs and let people take a look. It wasn't like they wanted to show off, but rather to avoid some gossip. Okay, it's my treat. Jing Yunjiao said with a smile. Actually she didn't really care, after all, there was no lack of gossip. However, it was rare for her to make a friend like Xiao Haiqing, so she still needed to listen to her opinion. No need to be so polite, it's not like I'm lacking in money. Xiao Haiqing said with a wink. Jing Yunjiao, however, insisted, then I'm not going. Xiao Haiqing, upon hearing this, stared with her eyes wide open and curled her lips. She had never seen such a twisted girl before. She didn't even want to take advantage of others. What a stubborn donkey. But to be honest, this personality of hers made her like it more and more. Okay, then you treat. Be careful that I don't make you poor. Xiao Haiqing looked happy. Due to Jing Yunjiao's presence, Teacher Jin, who was on the stage, had been trying her best to restrain herself. However, she didn't expect that the more the two talked, the happier they became. She directly called Xiao Haiqing up to the podium to answer the questions. Xiao Haiqing was a freak. Even though her exam results weren't always ideal, she rarely made mistakes when answering questions. After answering the questions perfectly, she left Teacher Jin with a dumbfounded expression and elegantly returned to her seat. One was a genius while the other was a freak. Teacher Jin had nothing to say. The class passed peacefully. However, after a few classes, Yi Qing's figure indeed became active. He shuttled through the class. Other than the students who ranked at the bottom of the class, everyone was given an invitation card. Of course, Jing Yunjiao did not receive one. To all the students who received the invitation, it's my birthday on Saturday, and I've made reservations at Fragrant Ocean Restaurant. If you're free, you must come, especially the class monitor. If you don't come, then I'm going to ignore you. Yi Qing, with a face full of shyness, stood on the podium and said. Looking at the class monitor, Jiang Xia's eyes were filled with love. Yi Qing, did you forget about Jing Yunjiao? Jiang Xia suddenly asked. These past few days, he had been paying attention to Jing Yunjiao. He found that she was really pitiful. Other than Xiao Haiqing, no one else was willing to pay attention to her. Last time when he tried to persuade her, he thought that she would change. But who would have thought that not only did she not change, she even became worse, and caused such a huge ruckus with Lu Jiao from the next class. Jing Yunjiao's mouth twitched. Some people suffered from a serious disease called narcissism, which was incurable. Chapter 53. I didn't forget about the class monitor, I just didn't invite her. Yi Qing looked at Jiang Xia with a wronged expression, as her hands trembled. It's like this, I feel like it's my birthday, so of course I have to have fun. It'll be a bit awkward for unfamiliar people to gather together, so I don't want everyone to have a bad time. Xiao Haiqing coldly snorted, as she didn't want to hear such hypocritical words at all. Unfamiliar people? Yi Qing was the study committee member of the class, who always prided herself on being aloof. There were only 2 or 3 students that she had a good relationship with. Of the people that she invited, many of them were people that she hadn't even talked to before, so how could those people be considered familiar? She was clearly trying to embarrass Jing Yunjiao, yet she had to make it sound so fake, as if Jing Yunjiao owed her something. Rip. Xiao Haiqing directly tore up the invitation. Yi Qing, you're right, it'll be awkward for unfamiliar people to gather together. So I'm sorry, but I can't attend your birthday party. After all, we're not familiar with each other. Also, Yunjiao and I already agreed to go eat together, so it'll be just the 2 of us, so the air will be a bit better. Xiao Haiqing's mouth was also quite poisonous, cursing Yi Qing for polluting the air in a roundabout way. Yi Qing's temper wasn't that good, but she normally liked to hold it in. Now that she was humiliated by Xiao Haiqing in front of so many classmates, she immediately became angry. Fine, if you 2 like the quiet, then go eat by yourselves. Congratulations Jing Yunjiao, you've made a rich friend. You might as well just have Xiao Haiqing pay for your tuition and support you. Jing Yunjiao expressionlessly replied, it's just a meal. According to what you're saying, you're prepared to pay for your classmates' tuition and support them for the rest of their lives. Miss Yi is so rich, even if she wanted to take care of everything, she'd have more than enough. Unlike me, a poor brat, who still needs Yunjiao to treat me. Xiao Haiqing also immediately helped Jing Yunjiao to clear things up. With the 3 of them going back and forth, the whole class was completely silent. Yi Qing's eyes were slightly red, and the corners of her mouth were slightly bent down. Her eyelashes were constantly fluttering, and tears were flashing in her eyes, as if she had suffered a great grievance. After holding it in for a few seconds, she said, Jing Yunjiao, you have to be careful. The food at Fragrant Sea restaurant is expensive. Remember to bring more money, in case you don't have enough money to pay the bill. At your age, no one would dare to ask you to work to pay off their debts. But since we're classmates, you can come to me if you run out of money. It's okay to pay for 1 more table of food. These words were full of provocation. Jing Yunjiao pursed his lips and suddenly recalled a rumor about a classmate from his previous life. Before, she couldn't remember who that classmate was, but after interacting with each other these days, only Yi Qing was able to match her impression of him. Yi Qing's father was a businessman. His family ran 4 to 5 chain supermarkets, which wasn't small at all. In a place like Huaning County, he could be counted as someone with some reputation. However, later on, her father invested all of his operating funds in other places. Not only did he lose everything, but he also owed a bunch of debt. Yi Qing directly fell from a rich missy status to the point where she couldn't even compare to a normal classmate. However, she was used to being arrogant since she was young. Later on, she continued to pretend to be rich, and forced her mother to the point of suicide. Jing Yunjiao remembered, when that happened, it was probably not long after she dropped out of school. In other words, the current Yi Qing's family was probably already in a state of depression. Suddenly, Jing Yunjiao's impression of Yi Qing turned into disgust. A girl who didn't even care about her own parents, no matter how well dressed she was, still made people want to vomit. Chapter 54. Jing Yunjiao faintly glanced at Yi Qing, and that quarreling voice came to an abrupt end. As if she had suddenly forgotten that there was such a person in front of her, she turned her head to look elsewhere. But when Yi Qing saw Jing Yunjiao turn her head to the side, the expression in her eyes was a bit horrifying, as if she was a dirty thing. Inexplicable. It must be because Jing Yunjiao was scared and didn't dare to pay attention to her. Jing Yunjiao, you don't have any money on you, so I advise you to apologize to Qiao Hongye and borrow some money. After all, she's your little sister, isn't she? Jiang Xia, who was sitting in front, turned his head and quietly advised. Borrow my ass. Will you die if you don't meddle in other people's business? If you like Qiao Hongye so much, then why don't you go and do it? All day long you're like a fly buzzing around Yun Zhao's ears. If there's a next time, do you believe I won't sew your stinky mouth shut? Xiao Haiqing threw a book over with a pa sound, and it just so happened to hit Jiang Xia's face. That beautiful arc made Jing Yunjiao want to clap her hands and cheer. The corner of her mouth hooked up, and she gave Xiao Haiqing a chest hug. Well scolded. That's only natural. Recently I've been restraining myself, otherwise I would have dug out his 18 generations of ancestors and scolded them all. Xiao Haiqing deliberately flipped her long hair, and made a proud expression. This made Jing Yunjiao very happy. Recently when she was with Xiao Haiqing, the other party had always been gentle and soft, which made her think that Xiao Haiqing was different from her previous life. Jiang Xia only knew how to use his mouth. If he really fought, a grown man like him wouldn't even be as good as a woman like Xiao Haiqing. Now that he was being scolded by Xiao Haiqing, he didn't even dare to say a single word. Yet he still loved his face, so he hurriedly changed the topic and acted as if nothing happened. Coward. Xiao Haiqing curled her lips in disdain. Seeing Jiang Xia's attitude, Yi Qing also felt uncomfortable. Hatefully walking down from the podium, he angrily smashed the tables and chairs. Unfortunately, no one paid any attention to him, so he finally settled down. In the blink of an eye, it was Saturday. Jing Yunjiao left the house early and went to the alley first. This time, he only brought one ginseng. It looked pretty good. He also wanted to confirm if Old Man Shu had the ability to buy it. The price of ginseng was not fixed. Some ginseng cost a few thousand yuan per kilogram, while others cost tens of thousands or even millions per ginseng. Jing Yunjiao's ginseng consumed a lot of blue spring water in her space. Other herbs were watered with water that was diluted hundreds of times. However, the ratio of blue spring water to water for this ginseng was 1 to 10. Every long strand of the ginseng was carefully preserved. Even the little bug that took the ginseng out of the space was reluctant to part with it. It was enough to prove that this ginseng was a good thing. You don't have any herbs today? Having finished memorizing the medical book, Old Man Shu looked up and asked. I do have one. Let me show it to you. If you can buy it, then buy it. If not, don't force it. Jing Yunjiao felt quite sorry for this old man. With such a weird temper, besides that cold disciple of his, there was no one else around. What's with the nonsense? If you have it, then take it out. Stop being so long-winded. Old Man Shu glared at her. Although they haven't known each other for a long time, but Jing Yunjiao already knew this old man's habits like the back of her hand. She didn't mind his tone at all and took out the ginseng. This old man was also quite amazing. Even through the package, he seemed to be able to smell the ginseng. His expression immediately changed to one of shock and caution. Carefully taking the ginseng from her hand, when he opened it, his eyes almost popped out. Such a good thing, and you're using this crappy thing to wrap it up? Good thing the strand isn't broken, otherwise you don't need to come here anymore. Chapter 55. The way Old Man Shu touched the ginseng was like a pervert looking at a woman. He observed her from head to toe for a long time, his eyes emitting an old green light. 3 million. You can take the money, but keep the thing. Old Man Shu straightforwardly said a number, but he couldn't let go of his hand. However, the way he looked at Jing Yunjiao became more and more passionate, as if she was a treasure bowl. He sighed in his heart. Such a good thing, even in the capital, was rarely seen. If he cut it off and ate it piece by piece, he would be reluctant. It was better to soak it in wine, strengthen the body, and store it for a long time. At this time, Jing Yunjiao was already dizzy from the 3 million figure. In her previous life, let alone 3 million, she didn't even touch 30,000 yuan. However, she didn't lose her reason. Old man Shu, if you don't have that much money, then forget it. Don't sell this courtyard just to buy my ginseng. Wasn't this old man Shu just an old man? How much money could he have? If because of this old man didn't have a place to stay in the future, and his old age was miserable, she would feel bad. After all, old man Shu was still good to her. When old man Shu heard this, he immediately blew his beard and glared. However, just as he was about to reprimand her, he thought of the ginseng in his hand and immediately extinguished the fire. He said in a rare soft voice, "You are looking down on me too much. This amount of money is nothing to me, Xing Yuan. You are responsible for transferring the money to the girl." The person called Xing Yuan was the 30-year-old middle-aged man beside the old man. The other party had a cold and hard face, but when facing old man Shu, his attitude was respectful and his expression was much more amiable. However, at this time, Jing Yunjiao had made old man Shu happy, so this Xing Yuan looked more amiable than before. "I don't have a bank card." Jing Yunjiao was also somewhat flustered. "Then when we return, Xing Yuan will take you to do one." Old man Shu impatiently waved his hand and carried the ginseng treasure back into the house. He didn't stay for a moment longer. Jing Yunjiao was somewhat helpless. "Uncle Xing Yuan, is this ginseng really worth so much money? The tree you've brought is of sufficient age. Moreover, there isn't any damage to its appearance. Naturally, its price won't be low. However, such a good thing is hard to come by." Uncle Xing Yuan was astonished for a moment before replying. Jing Yunjiao also sounded an alarm in his heart. Selling ginseng once was enough. If he did it more often, old man Shu might not be able to hold back his curiosity. However, it had to be said that old man Shu and this Uncle Xing Yuan were both pretty good people. Although the medicinal ingredients that she had brought with her were not as expensive as this ginseng, their quality was still rare and exquisite. However, the two of them had accepted them without saying anything. If it were other people, they would definitely be unable to help but ask a few more questions. The alley was remote, but there were banks nearby. With Xu Xingyuan leading the way, although Jing Yunjiao was young, he did not attract the attention of others. She needed a lot of money to go to school, and she also had some daily expenses, so she had more than 100,000 yuan in cash with her. The rest of the money was divided between 2 bank cards. After the money and goods were settled, Jing Yunjiao went to the Fragrant Sea restaurant as promised. The Fragrant Sea restaurant was located in the center of the county, but it occupied a large area. The furnishings inside were even more noble. Jing Yunjiao had heard people say that the owner of the Fragrant Sea restaurant was not a local, but a member of a large family in the capital. It was also said that the owner's ancestors came from Huaning County. They would occasionally come back to worship their ancestors. For convenience, they built such a large restaurant. Yunjiao. As soon as he entered, Xiao Haiqing, who was sitting and waiting, suddenly jumped out. "You're really late. I thought you were going to stand me up." Chapter 56. Xiao Haiqing was wearing a black coat today. Her long hair was tied up, and although she didn't have any makeup on her white skin, her temperament looked a lot more mature, with a bit of experience and straightforwardness. "I just went to get some money, so I came a bit late. Have Yi Qing and the others arrived?" Jing Yunjiao raised his eyebrows and asked. Xiao Haiqing pursed her lips. "That's right. They came early and are already in the hall." "Oh right, when they came in, they even asked me to ask you if we're not full. She said that if we're not full, she'll treat us to a few more dishes." "What kind of people are they?" Xiao Haiqing's original intention was very simple. She didn't have any intention of competing with Yi Qing. She just wanted to let others know that Jing Yunjiao wasn't easy to bully. But this Yi Qing's temper was really bad. These past few days, she had been sneering behind Jing Yunjiao's back. She and Jing Yunjiao didn't care too much about it, but the other side was really endless. Since she already said that she wants a few more dishes, Then why don't we just do what she wants? Come on, let's go upstairs. Jing Yunjiao pulled Xiao Haiqing's hand and entered through the glass door. Xiao Haiqing was stunned by Jing Yunjiao's attitude, and was a bit absent-minded. Jing Yunjiao wasn't such a passionate person. What's wrong with him today? At home, did he take the wrong medicine? At this time, Jing Yunjiao had a smile on his face. His entire temperament changed a bit. Full of confidence, the curve of his mouth was brimming with the taste of youth and sunshine. He wasn't as lifeless and indifferent as before. This was all because of the 3 million. Of course, Jing Yunjiao wasn't satisfied with this income. He just felt that the door to a new world had opened, and he vaguely felt that he should strive for the brightest places. In her past life, she had always lived in the shadows. She didn't have the chance to come in contact with money or the career she loved. But the heavens gave her a second chance. She had the space, this heaven-defying cheat. In just a short period of time after her rebirth, her life was already very different from before. Before, she thought that as long as she let nature take its course, it would be fine. But today, her thoughts changed. 3 million was simply not enough. What she wanted was a real life, a life full of endless possibilities. He had already died once. What was there to be afraid of? As soon as the two of them entered the hall, they couldn't help but be shocked by the luxurious design. This hotel had more than 10 floors, and in the middle, there seemed to be a hollowed-out luminous column. The sparkling crystal chandelier was full of romantic colors, and in the middle of the hall under the chandelier, there was an exquisite small fountain pool with some golden and red carps swimming in it. Although there were hundreds of tables in the hall, each of them was very independent and did not feel crowded or messy. On the contrary, this amazing area made the hotel a little empty and quiet. The 2 tables that Yi Qing booked were not very good, or it could be said that they were on the only way for people to come and go. No matter which level of railing one looked down from, it could be seen clearly. It seemed to be the focus of attention, but in fact, compared to other places, this position would make people feel a little uncomfortable. Jing Yunjiao, if you don't have a place to sit, just come over. Today is my birthday. On such a happy day, I won't bother with you. Yi Qing saw the two of them pass by and immediately said with a smile. Today, she was wearing a pink winter dress and a short woolen jacket. This outfit was fine in the hotel, but if she were to step out of the door, she would definitely be cold. Chapter 57. The table beside Yi Qing was already filled with people. After saying that, she pretended to glance over the 2 tables, and her eyes revealed a look of pity. Aya, there's no more seats. How about this? I'll get someone to add 2 more chairs. You guys can sit behind everyone, and when it comes to getting food, just let others help. You don't have to worry about it. If you ask me, your table is still a bit crowded. If some of the students feel uncomfortable, I don't mind inviting them to sit with us. Jing Yunjiao walked over and looked at Yi Qing without the slightest bit of fear. She was originally tall and thin, and today she changed into a new set of clothes. Her clothes no longer gave off that rustic feeling. Her whole person was fresh and clean, and with that confident temperament, she looked more like a rich family's daughter. Her light tone and attitude made Yi Qing feel a bit of pressure. Let's not beat around the bush. You also don't need to pretend with us. You said you booked a table, then why don't you tell us where it is? Besides, even if you really did book a table, what evidence do you have to prove that it wasn't Xiao Haiqing who paid for it? Everyone knows that Xiao Haiqing's family is very well off, so she definitely has the ability to do so. Yi Qing pointed out. Jing Yunjiao rubbed her forehead, and was completely speechless towards this Yi Qing in front of her. Although she was young and didn't know any better, but when her family was in trouble, she was still able to pretend that nothing happened. It was clear that her nature was already rotten to the core. Jing Yunjiao also didn't want to waste any more words with her, and waved to a passing waiter. Can you please take us to the Star Hall? Okay. The waiter was full of smiles, and was very diligent. There were a lot of private rooms in Fragrant Sea Restaurant, and the inside of the rooms were all somewhat exquisite. The 2nd floor was mostly romantic, the 3rd floor was suitable for family gatherings and formal occasions, and as for the 4th and 5th floor, It was mostly for business and political exchanges. They wouldn't just let people in, so there was a certain degree of privacy. Further up were the rooms, and the higher the floor, the better the service and environment. The room was booked by Xiao Haiqing. Because it was only the two of them, they specifically chose a room with a beautiful environment. It was on the second floor, and if one opened the curtains, they could also see the situation downstairs. Jing Yunzhao's understatement really pissed Yi Qing off. However, after thinking about it for a moment, he felt relieved. Whether or not Jing Yunzhao had money would have to wait until the end of the meal. He snorted and sat down. Let's eat first. Don't worry about them. These students all had their own set of principles and standards in their hearts. They also felt that adding Jing Yunzhao and Xiao Haiqing wouldn't be a big deal. It was just that it was Yi Qing's birthday after all. No one wanted to touch Yi Qing's bad luck on this day. It could be considered giving her face. Yi Qing immediately ordered the dishes to be served. Not long after, plates of exquisite dishes were served. The taste of this fragrant sea restaurant was the best in Ningxiang County. It almost instantly attracted everyone's attention. Who would remember the unhappiness just now? Holding the dishes in their hands, they began to celebrate. At this time, Jing Yunzhao and Xiao Haiqing had also arrived at the Star Hall. As soon as they entered the room, Jing Yunzhao felt a lot more relaxed. The Star Hall's layout was on the dark side. Under their feet was transparent glass, and below the glass was the starry sky. It was as if they were stepping on the stars, and the exquisiteness was projected all around, as if they were in an illusion. It was extremely beautiful. This kind of room was a bit special. What they cared about was the enjoyment of the soul, so the price was also on the expensive side. Xiao Haiqing apologetically smiled at Jing Yunzhao. Yunzhao, there's an extra charge for this room. When she booked the room before, she didn't want Jing Yunzhao to pay. Although there were a lot of rooms in this fragrant sea restaurant, there were even more guests. Changing rooms was a bit more difficult. Chapter 58. Xiao Haiqing was afraid that Jing Yunzhao didn't have enough cash on her, so she reminded her in advance. She wanted to fork out the money, but she was worried that it would hurt Jing Yunzhao's self-esteem. She was in a dilemma. However, Jing Yunzhao acted as if nothing had happened. She just nodded and sat down steadily. The dishes were ordered in advance. Jing Yunzhao was also hungry. Anyway, there was only her and Xiao Haiqing, so there was no need to be reserved. She directly asked the waiter to serve the dishes. Xiao Haiqing came from a good family, so she didn't think too much when she was choosing the dishes. When she saw the exquisite but expensive dishes being served, she was a little restless. The cold dishes at the beginning were still acceptable, but towards the end, cinnamon clams with pearls, mandarin duck emerald golden belt, blue wave swimming dragon, soaring dragon wings. In fact, it was just sauteed jade belt with soy sauce, garlic lobster, steamed grouper with ancient method, shark fin Buddha jumps over the wall. Of course, this was only a small part of the menu. In order to prove herself, Xiao Haiqing ordered almost all of the main dishes in the restaurant. Not to mention the fact that she couldn't guess what the dishes were, even the taste of the food was unfamiliar to her. There were even some dishes that Jing Yunzhao had never heard of before. That. Yunzhao, I feel bad for letting you pay for such expensive things alone. How about this? Let's each pay a portion? Xiao Haiqing probed. Jing Yunzhao was eating happily. There's no need. I said that I'll treat. It's okay if there are more dishes. I'll pack some later. I have 2 friends at the place where I live. They can be eaten for many days in the fridge. When Jing Yunzhao said this, Xiao Haiqing felt even more guilty. It's my fault. I wanted to be happy, but I didn't know when to stop. It's good that you know. It's shameful to waste food. So, hurry up and eat. Let's wipe these things out. Jing Yunzhao lowered his head and continued. Since there were no outsiders in the room, he rolled up his sleeves and the atmosphere suddenly changed. I thought all good students were above the common populace. It turns out that you're actually like this in private. Xiao Haiqing couldn't help but laugh with a bitter face. Her expression became more and more interesting. However, Xiao Haiqing also sighed inwardly. Don't judge Jing Yunjiao based on how sloppy her actions were. No matter how you looked at it, she couldn't tell that it was vulgar. The same action would look completely different on different people. Looking at Jing Yunjiao eating so happily, Xiao Haiqing couldn't help but smack her lips. In the end, she simply threw caution to the wind. Slow down, leave some for me. This dish is really top-notch. Have another bite. Don't fight with me. The two of them ate in full swing. After a while, the door to the private room opened. Two guests. The guest downstairs has gifted you a plate of wealth and honor. Please enjoy. The waiter politely brought it up. The two of them took a look. It was just leftover tofu mixed with scallions. The guest downstairs? Apart from Yi Qing, it couldn't be anyone else. Xiao Haiqing didn't even say anything when Jing Yunjiao placed the dish in his hands into the waiter's hands. Can I trouble you to send this back and tell the girl who asked you to send the dish that this dish tastes pretty good? Let her try it. If she asks for the name of the dish or the ingredients, just tell her the truth. Jing Yunjiao, on the other hand, wasn't that generous. The dish she sent back was indeed a delicacy called coral 100-flower abalone. It was juicy and delicious, but all that was left was the broth and the decorative flower carvings on top. This dish was worth more than 1,600 renminbi. Yi Qing would probably vomit blood if she took a look at it. Jing Yunjiao never had the intention to flaunt his wealth. If Yi Qing didn't provoke him, then she could just eat this meal in peace. However, the other party just had to chase after him and embarrass himself. Chapter 59. When the waitress delivered the dishes, she was also in a bit of a dilemma. If it wasn't for the girl downstairs saying that she was familiar with the customers here, she wouldn't have delivered the dishes from the other tables. Now that she saw that the customers not only didn't get angry, but even asked her to return the leftovers, she was secretly happy. From the looks of it, these two groups of customers don't get along. However, it was clear that the table she served downstairs couldn't be compared to the two in front of her. Especially the girl who spoke. Not only did she have a great figure, but her looks were also top-notch. Moreover, her temperament was even more noble. She should be the daughter of some big family, right? The waitress courteously accepted and followed Jing Yunjiao's instructions. You're also a bad person. Yi Qing loves her face the most. Giving you leftover tofu with spring onions, she was hoping that you'd be so poor that you couldn't even afford a meal. Yet you slapped her in the face so straightforwardly. Oh right, when I came here I heard that Yi Qing's table costs 1,600 per table. That is to say, the dishes we're sending over are the price of her entire table. Xiao Haiqing laughed even more happily, as if she could already see Yi Qing fuming. Jing Yunjiao pulled the corner of her lips. The tree wants peace, the wind will not stop blowing. I didn't want to mess with her. There were only two reasons why Yi Qing was against her. First, her grades had always been number one in the entire school. In the same class, she definitely beat Yi Qing, the study committee member. Second, it was because of Jiang Xia. Yi Qing liking Jiang Xia was a fact that everyone knew. However, Jiang Xia just had to like Qiao Hongye. For Qiao Hongye's sake, he would meddle in her business. Yi Qing was such a self-centered person, she definitely thought that there was something between her and Jiang Xia. Adding on her family background, it made Yi Qing feel that her existence was an insult to her proud life. Jing Yunjiao, has anyone ever told you that you've changed a lot? I have a pretty deep impression of you. Before, you were just good at studying, so people said that you were amazing. But in reality, everyone could bully you. But recently, it doesn't seem like that anymore. You're pretty amazing. You didn't lose out even after being bullied a few times. You almost caused a life-threatening incident, yet all you did was stir up some trouble. It didn't have much of an effect. Xiao Haiqing said, and couldn't help but give her a thumbs up. Jing Yunjiao's eyes were half-curved. You're not good. Jiang Xia trembled in fear with just one sentence. Also, she had developed into a super strong woman in her previous life. Although her reputation in relationships wasn't too good, she was still so powerful that no one dared to provoke her. Do we have to boast about each other like this? I will blush. Xiao Haiqing laughed. Really? Is it because of the red wine? Jing Yunjiao also said happily. He reached out and clinked his glass with Xiao Haiqing's and drank it all in one gulp. The hotter the atmosphere, the better. But on the other side of the hall, Yi Qing had already been blinded by anger. Feeling humiliated, his face was burning, he was flustered. Jing Yunjiao was really thick-skinned. She didn't know where he got the leftovers and used them to humiliate her. What's wrong with your hotel? Are you going to deliver whatever they ask you to deliver? This is leftovers that have been stained with other people's saliva. Who knows how many germs are in it? Who knows, maybe the person who just ate it is still sick. Yi Qing didn't care about her face anymore, and spoke sarcastically. Jiang Xia, who was sitting beside her, frowned. Yi Qing, don't be unreasonable. Our classmates are all here, how ugly is that? Hearing that, Yi Qing became even sadder. How is it ugly? Is there anything uglier than being humiliated with leftovers? I was kind enough to give her a gift of riches, but what did she give me? If she really had the ability, why didn't she give me something that hasn't been eaten before? She just had to give me leftovers. Does she think I'm a beggar? Chapter 60. Yi Qing's eyes were red, as if she had completely forgotten who was the one that started this. Looking at the expensive leftovers, she couldn't help but feel jealous. Isn't Jing Yunjiao just a wild girl without parents? What right does she have to humiliate her like this? Yi Qing, don't be like this. We were the ones who sent the leftovers over first. A female student beside her couldn't take it anymore and reminded her. Yi Qing was the study committee member. Normally she was very gentle and had a good personality. Who would have thought that she would change so much? Especially now, in front of so many people, she yelled and screamed like a shrew over a dish. Just too embarrassing. They were all 15 or 16 years old and already cared a lot about face. Who could stand Yi Qing's antics? So what if I sent it over first? There's still so much leftovers from my dish, where's hers? Everything in the dish has been eaten, it's dirty. If you want to speak for her, then eat it. Yi Qing was so angry that he reached out and grabbed the plate of leftovers from the waiter and threw it in front of the girl who spoke. Suddenly, the plate made a crashing sound and the soup splashed everywhere. The faces of the surrounding students were also stained with a lot of soup. Yi Qing was a bit regretful after taking action. She was just too angry, but since she already said it, it was impossible to take it back. What's more, she always cared about face. Subconsciously turning her head, she still had a face full of anger. Everyone couldn't stay calm anymore. It's fine if she, Yi Qing, was angry at Jing Yunjiao, but why did she have to vent her anger on them? Although they ate Yi Qing's food, but Yi Qing did take the initiative to invite them. Wasn't it all for her birthday? Now look, not only did they not eat anything good, they even got into trouble. You're going too far. You really think you're so great just because you're the study committee member? At least Jing Yunjiao didn't bully her classmates like you. You better apologize right now, or else we'll all pretend that you don't exist in this class. A male student angrily stood up and said, You want to isolate me like you isolated Jing Yunjiao? Who do you think you are? Don't forget that you're eating and drinking my food. What right do you have to lecture me like this? Besides, what did I do wrong? You guys are here to celebrate my birthday. What right do you have to speak for Jing Yunjiao? Yi Qing was still unrepentant. She was indeed a little scared, but it was impossible for her to admit defeat. As soon as she said that, her classmates were all angry. The few of them quarreled loudly, attracting strange looks from the people around them. Yi Qing's face was red, but he endured it. Yi Qing, I thought you were a gentle person, but I didn't expect you to be such a person. However, this matter is indeed because Jing Yunjiao is too stingy. It's fine if he gave us food, but he just had to give us leftovers. How about this, Yi Qing? You get someone to make 2 more servings of this coral 100-flower abalone for everyone to try as an apology. Today, we all came out to have fun, so we can't lose our harmony because of one person, right? Jiang Xia was famous for being a nice person. At this moment, he didn't forget to put in a few good words. But what he said made everyone unhappy. Even the people at the table next to them couldn't help but laugh. This guy was young, but he had a self-righteous personality. Moreover, he was also a bit selfish. Everyone else was about to fight, yet he was still thinking about that dish. He didn't even forget to take advantage of the girl. Of course, Jiang Xia didn't think this way. He felt that since everyone was quarreling because of the 100-flower abalone, then they should just use the 100-flower abalone to settle it. It could also show Yi Qing's magnanimity and let Jing Yunjiao see that the dish she spent so much effort to find was actually nothing in their eyes. They could eat it whenever they wanted. Chapter 61. Jiang Xia at this moment felt like he was being magnanimous and played the role of a peacemaker. But when Yi Qing heard this, her face turned from red to white. The reason why she was angry wasn't just because Jing Yunjiao sent over a plate of leftovers, but because of the price of the dish. This dish was the same price as all the dishes on her table, and now they want her to order too. Where did she get that much money? And for this birthday celebration, she begged her parents for a long time and only managed to get 500 yuan. But how was that enough? Without any other choice, she could only sell off all the birthday gifts her parents gave her and buy herself some pretty clothes. The rest of the money was only enough to treat everyone to a meal. Jiang Xia, don't say any more. We're not beggars. The reason why we came wasn't because of the meal, but because of her. Who would have thought that she would bully us like this? Since it's like this, then we don't want to stay here any longer. We'll be leaving first. The girl who was splashed with soup stood up, picked up her jacket and prepared to leave. But Yi Qing was worried. With this girl taking the lead, how could the others sit still? Wouldn't she be even more embarrassed? Immediately, she stepped forward to stop her. You're not allowed to leave. My legs are on my body. What right do you have to stop me from leaving? The girl directly flung Yi Qing's hand away and angrily glared. The girl's name was Yang Tiantian. Her relationship with Yi Qing was pretty good before, but Yi Qing didn't treat everyone like this before. Also, today, to celebrate Yi Qing's birthday, she even changed into a new set of clothes. She was giving Yi Qing face and didn't want to embarrass herself. But Yi Qing spilled a plate of soup and ruined her new clothes. Who knows how her parents will scold her when she gets home? That's not allowed. Everything you just ate was bought by me. You have to listen to me. Yi Qing began to pester endlessly. Yang Tiantian's face was red with anger. How much is it? I'll pay you back on Monday. Now get the hell out of my way. You're the one getting the hell out of my way. If you can't pay, then just say it. What's the point of only knowing how to bark and stall for time? Yi Qing was even more angry. Once his temper flared up, the two couldn't avoid physical contact. This Yang Tiantian had already made up her mind to leave, so how could she just let it go? She also used all her strength to rush over, but Yi Qing's actions were somewhat shameless. He scratched her skin until it was burning with pain. In a fit of anger, she simply threw away the clothes in her hands and directly fought with Yi Qing. The people around them were dumbfounded. Some tried to stop the fight, while others tried to help. For a moment, it was a mess. When the waiter saw this, he immediately felt that something bad was going to happen. He quickly went to call security. However, just as the waiter left, he saw that Yang Tiantian somehow lost her balance and fell in the direction of the table and chair. Jing Yunjiao opened the curtains of the private room and saw this scene. His heart skipped a beat. Oh no, something happened downstairs. Let's go down. What's wrong? What did Yi Qing do again? Why should we care about what they do? Xiao Hai Qing hadn't seen the situation yet. Her face was flushed red from the wine as she moved closer to the window to take a look. She shivered and her mind instantly became clear. When she turned her head, Jing Yunjiao had already rushed out. Downstairs, it was a mess. A group of students were trembling in fear. But they were all children after all, so they didn't know what to do. Only to see Yang Tiantian's forehead was red and bleeding. Her hand was covering her right eye, and the blood on her forehead was flowing down her eye. It looked extremely terrifying. Get out of the way. Jing Yunjiao quickly went forward and opened Yang Tiantian's hand to take a look. Only to see that her eye was somewhat protruding, and the blood in her eye was frightening. Chapter 62. Yang Tiantian's eye injury wasn't light. If it wasn't treated in time, it would definitely leave a huge sequela. Moreover, other than her eye injury, the injury on her forehead wasn't small either. Even if the ambulance came, the first thing they would do would be to treat the bleeding on her forehead and not her eye. "Did you call the ambulance?" Xiao Haiqing asked nervously as soon as she appeared. "Haiqing, there's a pharmacy next door. Go and buy some hematite and angelica powder. Hurry up," Jing Yunjiao quickly instructed. She turned and stared at the flustered waiter. "Please bring some fresh pork over. I need it urgently." Although Xiao Haiqing didn't understand Jing Yunjiao's intentions, she still obeyed her orders. There was a pharmacy next to Fragrant Sea restaurant, so she ran over. However, the waiter was hesitant. "The ambulance will be here soon." This classmate had suffered such a big injury. She definitely had to bear some responsibility. What if this strange girl made the injury worse? She couldn't bear the responsibility. Jing Yunjiao could understand these people's thoughts, but at this moment, she was even angrier. "Hurry up. If something happens to her eye in the future, can you take responsibility?" Jing Yunjiao shouted coldly. Her imposing manner shocked everyone. At this time, Yang Tiantian had already fainted from the pain. A person's reaction couldn't lie. If the injury to her eye wasn't serious, Yang Tiantian wouldn't have covered it immediately. Moreover, the eyes were the most fragile. "Do as she asked." Everyone was stunned. Then, they remembered a strange and magnetic voice. Jing Yunjiao glanced over and met a pair of peach blossom eyes. However, she immediately missed it. She couldn't even remember the face clearly. After hearing the stranger's words, the waiter obediently went to the kitchen. Only then did Jing Yunjiao feel relieved. Xiao Haiqing was very fast. In less than 2 minutes, she had already brought back the things that Jing Yunjiao wanted. After waiting for the waiter to bring the pork, Jing Yunjiao followed the steps in his memory. He kneaded the 2 medicinal herbs into the pork and pressed them on the protruding eyeball of Yang Tiantian. Her eyeballs were slightly protruding and needed to be gently rubbed back in. After a while, he saw some poisonous blood flowing out of her eyes. Only then did Jing Yunjiao breathe a sigh of relief. However, Jing Yunjiao was also amazed when he recalled his subconscious actions just now. She was so anxious just now that she even forgot that she was not proficient in medicine. Fortunately, she still knew some of the basics. Moreover, she had memorized this treatment method. In addition, her brain had absorbed the essence of the spirit jade. At this time, it was not strange for her to use it. Instead, it was as if she had done it countless times. Removing the poisonous blood from Yang Tiantian's eyes was only a matter of time. When the ambulance arrived, they immediately sent her to the hospital. "Miss, I'm afraid you'll have to accompany me." The man who spoke just now suddenly reminded her. Jing Yunjiao was stunned. However, he continued, "Didn't you just save her? If there's a problem, you'll have to take responsibility." The corner of Jing Yunjiao's mouth twitched. However, there was no room for resistance. He could only nod and get into the car. Inside the ambulance, the medical staff did some simple procedures to stop the bleeding. Jing Yunjiao already knew what was going on. She had already confirmed that Yang Tiantian would be fine, so she wasn't too worried. Only then did she take a closer look at this unfamiliar man. The waiter listened to his words and followed him all the way here. He was probably the person in charge of Fragrant Sea restaurant. Chapter 63. The man was tall and straight, about 24 or 25 years old. The collar of his white shirt was slightly open, revealing a silver necklace with 2 rings. The material was not fancy. Perhaps he had rushed out in a hurry, so he did not have time to put on the dark blue coat in his hand. However, he did not seem to be cold. His body was slightly tilted back, and his brows were slightly furrowed. Jing Yunjiao only noticed his appearance now. He was extremely handsome, and his pair of peach blossom eyes were slightly raised even though he was not smiling. His thin lips were curved upwards, and his skin was fair. His entire silhouette was perfectly matched. However, he had a bit of a playboy's aura, and his appearance was very attractive. Jing Yunjiao still felt that it was better for men to be simple. A man who looked better than a woman could not be controlled by ordinary people. Her gaze lingered for a few seconds before she directly looked away. I'm ugly. Jing Yunzhao's action attracted the other party's attention. His dark eyes stared at her, sizing her up. Jing Yunzhao felt that it was strange. It's all right. Not bad. Li Xiaoyun's smile became even wider. He had lived for so long, and this was the first time someone had used this word to describe his appearance. Just now in the hotel, he was in a corner downstairs and heard the name Jing Yunzhao a lot. And the scene of the incident, he saw this girl rushing down from the second floor with his own eyes. It seemed that she was the main character that the quarreling girls were talking about. You were the one who sent people off with leftovers just now? Li Xiaoyun asked with a smile. It could be said that the leftovers were the source of this bloody incident. That's right, but this sir, your waiter sent the leftovers to me first. Is there a problem with me returning an eye for an eye? Jing Yunzhao asked subconsciously. This man was baffling. Could it be that he saw that she was young and wanted to make her bear the responsibility of this incident? Seeing that Jing Yunzhao was immediately on guard, Li Xiaoyun immediately said, Of course there's no problem. I was just asking out of curiosity. Jing Yunzhao glanced at him, and did not continue to pay attention. After all, Yang Tiantian was still lying there, and other things were better left for later. Shanghai Restaurant was located in the center of Huaning County, and was only a few streets away from the hospital. Not long after, Yang Tiantian was directly pushed into the emergency room, leaving Jing Yunzhao and Li Xiaoyun staring at each other. But at this time, Jing Yunzhao suddenly remembered that Yi Qing seemed to have escaped. When the ambulance arrived, they clearly didn't see Yi Qing's people, otherwise they would definitely have come together. Yang Tiantian was inexplicably hospitalized. After the other students regained their senses, they quickly ran over. Those who were familiar with the Yang family had already called to inform them. Yang Tiantian, and Li Xiaoyun, and Li. However, by the time her parents arrived, Yang Tiantian's wound had already been bandaged and she was already lying in the ward, sleeping peacefully. If anything happens to my daughter, I will get justice from you even if I have to risk my life. Mother Yang, as soon as she arrived, rushed to the bed. Seeing her daughter's appearance, she was extremely distressed, and turned to Li Xiaoyun. Jing Yunzhao frowned, and looked at Li Xiaoyun with a complicated expression. In her view, Li Xiaoyun's responsibility was not big. If it wasn't for Yi Qing's insistence on causing trouble, then things wouldn't be like this. Not to mention, Li Xiaoyun escorted her all the way here, and paid all the expenses, so he was still responsible. Of course, Yang Tiantian's parents only knew that their daughter was injured at the hotel, and did not know the details of the incident. So this kind of reaction was normal. Chapter 64. Li Xiaoyun's attitude was very humble and didn't refute, but the other students couldn't hold it in anymore. Auntie Yang, actually this isn't the hotel's fault, it's all Yi Qing's fault. Yi Qing spilled the leftover juice on Tiantian, and her attitude wasn't good either. Tiantian wanted to leave first, but Yi Qing wouldn't let her. The two of them accidentally hurt Tiantian. Seeing that the other students were about to speak, Jiang Xia immediately spoke as a representative. Auntie Yang heard this and her face didn't look too good. Accidentally? She was so fierce. How is it an accident? We asked the doctor when we arrived, and her eye was almost ruined. Also, her head lost so much blood. How long will it take to recover? What if it leaves a scar? Oh right, who's Yi Qing? Is it you? Jing Yunzhao was the closest and spent the most time in the room, so she was also the most worried. Therefore, Mother Yang subconsciously thought that the girl in front of her was the Yi Qing they were talking about. Auntie, I'm afraid you've got the wrong person. Beside her, Li Xiaoyun actually took the initiative to help and said, She's Jing Yunzhao. If it wasn't for her helping your daughter deal with her eye injury, then her eye might not even be able to use in the future. Although Li Xiaoyun was young, but his aura was quite intimidating. That natural peach blossom face of his had now retracted some of his playboy aura, and his attitude was very serious. Hearing this, the Yang family's parents were stunned. It was this girl who helped their daughter deal with her injury? How was that possible? When they arrived, they already asked the doctor. The doctor honestly said that the injury on the forehead was a small matter, and the only side effect was that it might leave a scar. However, the eye was luckily treated in time, otherwise even if she didn't lose her sight, she wouldn't be able to see as clearly as before. At the time, they were still thinking that since there were so many people in the hotel, maybe a kind doctor helped them. But who would have thought that this kind doctor was the same age as their daughter? Also, this name was a bit familiar, and seemed to be in the same class as their daughter. The young family's parents suspiciously looked at Jing Yunjiao, then looked at everyone else. Seeing everyone else nod their heads, they couldn't help but believe it. "Auntie, please don't blame Jing Yunjiao. Although this incident started because of her, at least she's already made up for her mistakes." Just as the young parents were about to thank her, Jiang Xia interrupted. Jiang Xia's attitude was very sincere. If it wasn't for his serious attitude, everyone might have thought that he was doing it on purpose. "What do you mean?" Father Yang's face turned cold. "Oh, it's like this. We were all eating in the lobby downstairs, and Jing Yunjiao and the girl next to her were eating in the VIP room upstairs. In a fit of anger, she sent a plate of leftovers over, which made Yi Qing unhappy. Tian Tian spoke up for Jing Yunjiao, so Yi Qing vented her anger on Tian Tian." Jiang Xia explained word by word. After he said that, Jing Yunjiao became a complete villain. "Jiang Xia, are you still human? You're too good at twisting the truth," Xiao Haiqing angrily said. Jing Yunjiao's face was cold. "Uncle, auntie, it's true that I have some conflicts with Yi Qing, but I wasn't the one who started it. I was upstairs, so I didn't know why a fight suddenly broke out downstairs. If I'm the cause, then I'm willing to take responsibility. But if someone wants to push all the blame onto me, then I won't admit it. Also, I believe that everyone here saw the whole thing. Whether or not it's like what Jiang Xia said, everyone here knows." Chapter 65. With Jing Yunjiao's words, the other students all had a guilty conscience. To be honest, Jing Yunjiao really didn't do anything wrong. Even if it was that leftover dish, it still couldn't be blamed on her. "Auntie, it's actually like this. Yi Qing treated us all to dinner, but left out Jing Yunjiao. She wanted to make things difficult for Jing Yunjiao, but she didn't expect Jing Yunjiao to also book a VIP room at Shanghai restaurant. So Yi Qing felt uncomfortable, and during the meal, she always suspected that Jing Yunjiao was lying to us, so she asked the waiter to send some leftover tofu. Originally the waiter didn't want to, but Yi Qing insisted, so the waiter had no choice. The girl who spoke had a good relationship with Yi Qing and young Tian Tian. Seeing young Tian Tian's unconscious state, she also felt a bit guilty. The young family's parents didn't care about the conflict between Yi Qing and Jing Yunjiao at all. Their faces were also a bit impatient. Until the moment when this classmate talked about their daughter's injury, the two's faces became even uglier. Yi Qing, this girl was mentioned by their daughter before. Their daughter once praised Yi Qing for her good looks, excellent grades, and even said that although her family background was good, she didn't put on any airs. The two of them had always hoped that their daughter could get along with such a good kid. But who would have thought that the sheep was actually a wolf? At such a young age, her mind was already so vicious. Just because of a moment of jealousy, she was able to do such a thing to others. More importantly, after such a serious accident, that Yi Qing actually escape. Even if she didn't do it on purpose, my daughter was still pushed aside by her. Today, I'll have a good chat with your homeroom teacher. What I want to ask Yi Qing's parents, do they think they can do whatever they want just because they're rich? Father Yang raged. "Uncle, auntie, we're really sorry." The other students all felt bad and hurriedly apologized. "It's not your fault." Father Yang also helplessly waved his hand, then turned to Jing Yunjiao and said, "Jing Yunjiao, right? This time, I still have to thank you for my daughter's matter. If his daughter's eyes had problems, when she woke up, how was she going to live? Jing Yunjiao, how did you know how to treat the wound? Your reaction at that time scared me. I thought you were possessed. However, you should be more careful the next time you encounter something like this. After all, you're not a doctor. It's fine if you can't save him, but what if it gets worse?" At the crucial moment, Jiang Xia added. Xiao Haiqing was so angry that she rolled her eyes. She had never seen someone like this. Even the other students couldn't take it anymore. They weren't fools. They wouldn't listen to whatever Jiang Xia said. Jiang Xia, how can you say that? Jing Yunjiao was so handsome at that time. His actions were so decisive. One look and you could tell that he was very confident. Immediately, a classmate chimed in. Jiang Xia replied, "You don't understand. One of my uncles is a doctor. It's very complicated to know the dosage of the herbs. In the past, I've seen many people who didn't know anything about medicine but pretended to know how to save people. In the end, they killed people. How terrible it is to encounter such a quack." Jiang Xia's words made everyone's face turn pale. "Uncle Yang, it was an emergency. Because it was too sudden, I didn't think too much about it. However, I have studied medicine for a period of time. I've seen Tiantian's situation before. That's why I was so decisive. Although there are a lot of quacks in this world, there are also a lot of arrogant people who speculate about people's hearts. If everyone is like those people who only know how to make sarcastic remarks, Tiantian will really be in danger this time." Jing Yunjiao didn't hold back his words. "You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."